Chapter 2304. The raging power of order rolled as the 7 deities of the Netherworld clan attacked at the same time, activating all their order powers to the maximum. With a rumble, the void collapsed, and arcs of lightning could not help but intertwine in the sky. Not far away, the whooshing crocodile and the little Taichu were watching the battle from afar, and they couldn't help but tremble. This kind of attack was really too terrifying. Lin Tian was in the middle of the battle, facing the 7 deities of order. He could feel the immense pressure, but his expression didn't change at all. He didn't even use the power of fate to block the 7 deities' order powers. Instead, he used the Saint runes of order and the reincarnation divine territory to block them forcefully, and the power of fate created by the Eye of Destiny pressed down on the 7 deities. Buzz! Outside his body, the Saint runes of order shone with boundless holy light, weakening the power of order that was pressing down on him. The reincarnation divine territory was behind the Saint runes of order. While the Saint runes of order weakened the power of order, it also resisted it. At the same time, the power of fate that he used kept surging around the 7 deities, forcing them to retreat continuously. The legendary Eye of Destiny is indeed powerful, the Netherworld clan said coldly. As he spoke, the 18 stone doors behind him opened with a rumbling sound. The formless killing power of the sound became even more intense. Then, another huge demonic shadow condensed behind him. It towered into the sky and seemed to be able to crush everything. Clearly, at this moment, the first divine son of the Netherworld clan had pushed his sequence mystique to the limit. Although the Eye of Destiny is powerful, his cultivation is only at the transformation void realm. He can't unleash its full power. Suppress him in 10 breaths. The other 6 deities of order spoke together, and their power of order surged. They used all sorts of other techniques, turning the place into a destructive sea of killing instantly. Lin Tian's eyes were deep, and there was no fear in them. He wasn't afraid at all in the face of the 7 deities' combined attack, and he continued to fight the 7 deities head-on. Buzz! Outside his body, the sacred runes of order revolved. The Eye of Destiny trembled slightly, and a terrifying waterfall of providence appeared. It seemed to descend from the 9 heavens. The aura of providence that surpassed order surged continuously, and its aura shook the world. He used this waterfall of providence to fight the 7 divine princes of the Yellow Springs clan, clashing with their divine powers of order. Boom! 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 There was an intense exchange, and a destructive aura surged. Blood splashed out again and again. The blood was his own, as well as the blood of the 7 deities of the Yellow Springs clan. In the blink of an eye, a full quarter of an hour passed. Boom! He clashed with the 7 individuals again. Blood flowed out from his mouth, and quite a few cracks appeared on his body. He took a step back. At the same time, the 7 members of the Yellow Spring clan were all covered in blood. Even the first god's son, Yellow Spring and I, was no exception. Good. Reincarnation form, Eye of Destiny. I have to admit that you are very strong. Very strong. With the cultivation of the void transformation realm, you can actually fight to a draw with the 7 of us. Yellow Spring's voice was cold. Since we are on par with each other, let's see who will run out of Saint power first. As he spoke, Saint light danced and boiled outside his body like a raging fire. The murderous aura was terrifying. At the same time, the Saint power outside the bodies of the other 6 divine princes also vibrated. They looked at Lin Tian, and their eyes became colder than before. The murderous intent in their eyes was also more intense than before. They really did not want to admit that the 7 of them could only fight to a draw with Lin Tian, who was at the void transformation realm, when they fought together against Lin Tian. Their cultivations were all higher than Lin Tian's. At the very least, there was a gap of an entire realm between them. In such a battle, they should have been the ones with the highest chance of victory. However, up until now, they had not won at all. No need. You don't have a chance anymore, Lin Tian said as he looked at the 7 of them. His eyes were still indifferent. As soon as he finished speaking, the Saint runes of order outside his body shone brightly. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying aura of destruction burst out. Circles of light of order and saint power intertwined, shaking the surroundings. As soon as this aura appeared, the sky in this place shook violently as if it would collapse in the next moment. You! The expressions of Yellow Spring and the others changed drastically. At this moment, the aura that Lin Tian suddenly exuded was too strong. It made even the first divine prince of the Yellow Spring clan, who was at the peak of the Great Void stage, tremble. Moreover, the most important thing was that the light of order and saint power outside Lin Tian's body clearly contained the powers of order and Tao of the 7 of them. Moreover, it was twice as strong as their own powers of order and Tao. How is this possible? You! The other 6 divine princes of the Yellow Spring clan were covered in blood. They had been fighting with Lin Tian for so long and had suffered serious injuries. At this moment, they also felt the strength of the light of order and saint power outside Lin Tian's body. They could feel that the light of order and saint power contained their powers. Their expressions changed drastically. They could not understand this scene at all. Lin Tian had displayed their powers at this moment. Moreover, their powers were even stronger than theirs. In the distance, Little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile also changed their expressions. They were all shocked by this scene. Wishing Crocodile's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. This scene was too strange. Boom! The terrifying light of order and saint power outside Lin Tian's body were vast and mighty, making Lin Tian look like a peerless god of war. From the beginning until now, all the magical powers of order and Tao power that you have used will be returned to you in double. He spoke and raised his right hand slightly. He simply and calmly punched toward the 7 divine princes. Absolute counterattack. As he punched, all the light of order and Tao power outside his body moved along with his fist. They turned into a beam of fist radiance that reached the sky. It directly shattered the Great Void, pierced through a Great Void tunnel, and enveloped all 7 of them. In an instant, the unparalleled light flooded all directions. Stop! Ah! Miserable screams were heard. The 7 of them were instantly drowned by the dazzling fist radiance. They directly exploded, and even their magical powers were annihilated. The dazzling light was turbulent here, like a surging wave. After a few breaths, it gradually calmed down. Lin Tian took a deep breath. The 9 black moons in his eyes disappeared in the blink of an eye, and he returned to his usual appearance. Outside his body, the 9-colored holy light appeared naturally. It contained the power of healing, causing his injuries to begin to heal at an astonishing speed. His essence, energy, and spirit gradually began to strengthen. Not far away, Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu could not help but open their mouths wide. This sudden turn of events caused their eyes to widen at the same time. A moment ago, Lin Tian was still fighting fiercely with the divine princes. But now, with just one strike, he had killed all of the divine princes together. Moreover, the power of that strike was actually the divine prince's magical powers of order and the Tao power that had been blasted out. Kid! Just now, what was that? How did you do it? How did you use the magical powers of order and the Tao power that are unique to those few people at the same time? Moreover, it's even more powerful than what those few people used. Chapter 2305. Looking at Lin Tian, Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu were simply too shocked. Lin Tian had actually suddenly unleashed the orderly mystique and lethal force of the Tao radiance that belonged to the few deities of the Netherworld tribe. Moreover, it was even stronger than what an eye of the Netherworld and the others had unleashed. With just one attack, he had abruptly ended everyone. This was simply too shocking, and it scared them. They couldn't understand at all. Facing Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu's faces full of confusion and shock, Lin Tian naturally wouldn't hide anything. My orderly mystique! As he spoke, he briefly explained the orderly mystique that he had evolved to Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu. As long as you can withstand all the attacks that come at you and not die, you can accumulate and refine them, and then return them back with double the power? Just now, was that the power of your orderly mystique? Wishing Crocodile's eyes widened even more. Yeah. Little Taichu's eyes widened as well. They had seen Wu Yi's orderly mystique before. It was a power that truly dominated the heavens and suppressed everything, overwhelming everything. In comparison, Lin Tian's orderly mystique wasn't as domineering as Wu Yi's orderly mystique. However, in terms of substance, they knew that Lin Tian's orderly mystique was definitely much stronger than Wu Yi's orderly mystique. He could refine all the attacks that came at him, whether it was sword radiance, fist radiance, or Dao radiance, and accumulate them together. Then, he could use his own mind to return the attack with double the power. In terms of practical effects, this was undeniably a little terrifying. In many cases, such an orderly mystique was simply a super-killing machine. They reckoned that in many cases, this orderly mystique was even more terrifying than the power of the Eye of Destiny. For example, the power that Lin Tianyi had unleashed when he killed the 7 of them had originated from Lin Tian's Order Divine ability. It was definitely at least 10 times more powerful than the Eye of Destiny that Lin Tian could unleash. Lin Tiantan smiled. His injuries had already completely healed. At this time, he called out to Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu and walked towards the dozens of mountains in front of them. There were dozens of mountains, and every mountain was engraved with ancient Dao markings. He brought the Wishing Crocodile and the Little Taichu to the front of the mountain and came into contact with these ancient Dao markings. He observed them carefully, and his mind couldn't help but tremble. At the same time, Little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile couldn't help but feel shocked when they saw these ancient Dao patterns. These Dao pattern ancient seals. Wishing Crocodile showed a frightened expression. Very scary, Lin Tian said in a low voice. When he came closer and observed the Dao pattern ancient seals on the dozens of mountains at close range, he felt an extremely ancient and vigorous aura. At the same time, he also sensed an astonishingly vast Taoist rhyme. Just by comprehending a trace of such Taoist rhyme, he felt that he had suddenly become insignificant in front of these ancient Taoist runes. That feeling of insignificance was as if he was a water plant and the ancient Taoist runes were a vast ocean. At the very least, they were left behind by someone in the true realm. His eyelids couldn't help but twitch. Countless years ago, someone in the true realm had stayed here to comprehend the Tao, and casually left these ancient Tao pattern seals here. He looked at these ancient Tao patterns and seals, paused for a while, and took a deep breath. Then, he called the Wishing Crocodile and the Little Taichu to start comprehending them. Some of the seals left behind by the supreme experts when they were comprehending the Tao, even if they were left behind casually, they still contained amazing Taoist rhyme. Comprehending these ancient Tao pattern seals and comprehending the Taoist rhyme contained within would be extremely helpful to one's cultivation. Moreover, most of these ancient Tao pattern seals were extremely extraordinary and had many wonderful features. If one studied them carefully, they would benefit a lot. At that moment, he sat down cross-legged in this place. The Reincarnation Heart Sutra automatically operated, and his divine thought of the origins surged towards the dense ancient Tao pattern seals on the dozens of mountains. He touched and comprehended the Taoist rhyme contained within these ancient Tao pattern seals, and at the same time, he also comprehended these ancient Tao pattern seals themselves. For a moment, as he observed these ancient Tao pattern seals and comprehended the Taoist rhyme within, he felt that his essence, qi, and spirit had left his body in an instant and suddenly appeared in a vast and boundless space. There were endless Tao radiances and immortal lights inside. Under the influence of these Tao radiances and immortal lights, his essence, qi, and spirit gradually became stronger and stronger. He could not help but have a new understanding of the path of cultivation in his heart. As his essence, qi, and spirit gradually became stronger, and as his new understanding of the path of cultivation emerged, his own cultivation realm began to loosen and improve bit by bit. There is no end to heaven and earth, and there is no end to cultivation. Although there is no end to this boundless path, one can continuously surpass oneself. One's own body is the path of cultivation. Cultivation is to surpass oneself. He muttered to himself, and the light in his eyes gradually became deeper, like two black holes. He said these as he muttered to himself. These were originally very common, and many people knew about them. However, at this time, as he observed the ancient Tao pattern seals here, and as he said these words, his eyes became deeper and deeper. He vaguely seemed to have grasped something that was worth pondering and meditating on. As his essence, chi, and spirit became stronger, his cultivation improved even faster. One's own body is heaven, one's own body is earth, one's own body is Tao. One's own body is everything. As he observed the ancient Tao pattern seals on the dozens of mountains, he muttered to himself from time to time, and his essence, chi, and spirit continued to become stronger. Just like this, time passed. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, in the blink of an eye, he stayed here for half a month. Boom! Half a month later, on this day, the heavens trembled, and this desolate world suddenly turned dusky. Directly above where he was, a huge thunder vortex appeared, and within it, blood-red lightning intertwined with each other, making crackling sounds. A terrifying destructive aura covered the sky and covered the earth, as if it was going to destroy everything. As soon as such a destructive aura appeared, little Taichu and wishing crocodile suddenly trembled and woke up together. This is? Looking at the thunder vortex in the sky and feeling the terrifying destructive aura, wishing crocodile's scales could not help but stand up. He immediately tilted his head and looked at Lin Tian, who was beside him. Tai virtual realm! Ya! Little Taichu's gaze fell on Lin Tian at this time, and he could not help but stare. At this time, Lin Tian's aura had obviously changed qualitatively compared to half a month ago, and there was a sudden change. In half a month's time, on this day, Lin Tian broke through to the absolute virtual realm. This caused wishing crocodile and little Taichu to feel their hearts palpitate. In half a month's time, they had been comprehending these ancient Tao pattern seals. Although they had obtained good results, their cultivation had not improved. However, Lin Tian had stepped into the absolute virtual realm from the peak of the void transformation stage and attracted the absolute virtual heavenly tribulation. This kind of improvement caused their eyes to be filled with shock. Dong! Chapter 2306. Heaven and earth became dark as thunder rumbled, and a destructive aura fell from the sky. In the space around them, tornadoes spread out one after another. Boom! Another clap of thunder rang out, and the sky suddenly became even darker. It was also at this moment that Lin Tian opened his eyes, and lightning intertwined in his eyes. You too continue to comprehend. He stood up and said to the little Taichu and wishing crocodile. With just one step he left this place. As he moved, the thunder in the sky also moved with him. Soon, he appeared about a few million miles away from where he was just now, and landed in a vast desert. This place was completely suitable for undergoing the tribulation, and there was nothing to worry about. Come! He raised his head and looked at the rolling thunder in the sky, and said this one word. In half a month's time, he had comprehended the ancient runes on the dozens of mountains. At this moment, he had stepped into the Great Void Plain and triggered the Great Void Thunder punishment. That destructive aura was extremely terrifying, but he was not afraid of it at all. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, the rolling thunder in the sky immediately pressed down. He was fearless and did not make any resistance. He directly took it with his flesh and blood, just like before, using the thunder punishment to temper his body. At the same time, he also called out the immortal Emperor Pagoda. After he stepped into the Great Void Realm, the Pagoda turned into a Great Void-level precious weapon. At this time, it was baptized and tempered by the thunder together with him. Boom! 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 Thunder punishment came one after another. In the blink of an eye, a total of 13 main thunder punishments had passed, and the space around them was scorched. He took the 13 main lightning punishments head-on without any resistance. He took them all head-on, using the fierce and domineering destructive lightning to temper his body, causing his physique to become several times stronger than before. It was also at this time that he took all 13 main thunder punishments without any resistance. At this time, he had reached the limit of what he could bear. He began to use the 5 heaven-shaking thunders, the reincarnation divine territory, and the reincarnation forging divine art to fight head-on. Boom! As he made his move at this time, the turbulent saint energy shook all directions, shattering the main thunder punishment one after another. Then, in the blink of an eye, the 18th round of the main lightning punishment descended. Streaks of lightning materialized, emitting a terrifying aura. Lin Tian's eyes were deep, and he was fearless. He opened his eye of destiny, and divine chains of order surged out. Cracking sounds rang out as the 18th main lightning punishment was destroyed in the blink of an eye. For a moment, the lightning vortex in the sky disappeared, and the destructive aura quickly dissipated. In the blink of an eye, the great world regained its clarity. Lin Tian stood in the middle of the desert. Beneath his feet was a piece of scorched earth. Arcs of lightning flickered around his body. At this time, he had truly reached the height of the great void realm. He used his divine thoughts to sense his body slightly. Immediately, he felt his current strength. The saint power in his body was endless, his sea of consciousness was more vast and boundless, his spiritual soul was more solid and tenacious, and his perception of the universe was clearer. Everything in his eyes was brighter. Compared to when he was at the peak of the void transformation stage, his fighting strength had undoubtedly undergone a shocking qualitative change. He was much, much stronger. All right. His eyes shone brightly. At this moment, he had reached the early stage of the great void realm, standing at the level of the strongest in the universe. He believed that if he faced the divine princes of the Yellow Springs clan again, he would not even need to use his order. He could wipe them all out with a raise of his hand. He believed that he was invincible under the soul reincarnation realm. After a pause, he tilted his head and looked at the pieces of purple light around him. Those were the fragments of the immortal Emperor Pagoda that had been shattered by the lightning tribulation. With a thought, he gathered all the purple light fragments and reformed the immortal Emperor Pagoda in the blink of an eye. After the immortal Emperor Pagoda was reformed, there were more lightning imprints on the pagoda, and the aura of extreme yang and toughness was stronger. The power of the entire pagoda had increased greatly, just like his own body. He nodded to himself. He was very satisfied with the pagoda's growth. With a thought, he stored it into his body again. Then, he took a step forward. In a flash, he had traveled an endless distance, and reappeared among the dozens of mountains from before. The Great Void Realm! The strongest in the universe! Wishing Crocodile looked at Lin Tian with shock and excitement. The Great Void Realm was the level of the strongest in the universe. Now that Lin Tian had reached the level of the strongest in the universe, it was naturally excited. Yeah! Little Taichu also opened its mouth and congratulated Lin Tian with its childish voice. Lin Tianyi smiled. After a pause, he asked Little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile, "How about you guys? What have you gained in the past half a month? We haven't improved much in terms of cultivation, but we have gained a lot in other aspects. Our understanding of heaven and earth has become clearer, and our understanding of Tao has deepened. In terms of battle strength, we should be 3 to 5 times stronger than we were half a month ago," Wishing Crocodile said. "Me too," Little Taichu said. Lin Tian nodded. Although Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu's cultivation hadn't changed much in the past half a month, their battle strength had increased by 3 to 5 times on the basis of their original cultivation base. This kind of gain could be considered very amazing. He paused and said, "Then, let's leave this place for now. I'll move the dozens of mountains that bear the ancient runes into my perfect world and bring them back to 10 Directions' ancient star. Then, I'll place them in the Celestial Court. You guys can continue to comprehend them in the Celestial Court. In a short time, your cultivation should improve a lot." It was the great destruction of the universe, so he couldn't stay here with Little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile to comprehend the ancient runes. There were still many things to deal with. Moreover, these ancient runes were extraordinary. If he brought them back to the Celestial Court, not only could Little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile continue to comprehend them, Jiyu, Shuiyi, Baiziki, and the rest of the immortal soldiers and immortal generals could also comprehend them together. By comprehending these ancient runes, Gu, Bai Ziki, and the rest of the Celestial Court's generals would become stronger. Okay, Wishing Crocodile said. He naturally understood the current situation. Lin Tian nodded and immediately propped up his perfect world. He moved the dozens of mountains that bear the ancient runes into his perfect world along with the large territory here. Let's go back to 10 Directions Ancient Star. He directly tore open the world portal here and stepped into it with little Tai Chu and Wishing Crocodile, disappearing in an instant. In the next moment, they stepped out from the other side. They were surrounded by huge stars. Apparently, they were in the starry sky. There were specks of silver radiance, and the smell of blood was very strong in the starry sky. There were intertwining killing intents, and even blood mist could be seen floating in the sky. Obviously, there was a fierce battle in this starry sky, and many people died. However, such a fierce battle didn't affect the huge stars in this starry sky. The surrounding huge stars were all unharmed. Lin Tian naturally knew what happened. It must be that the celestial soldiers and celestial generals of the Celestial Court had killed their way into this starry sky. Then, the celestial soldiers and immortal generals of the Celestial Court activated the killing formation they engraved in the starry sky. They killed all of them with absolute advantage. Therefore, the smell of blood was very strong in the starry sky, and the killing intents were intertwined. However, none of the surrounding stars were damaged. Lord Celestial Emperor! Not far away, a dozen figures rushed over. All of them were wearing the unique armor of the Celestial Court. All of them were vigorous in spirit. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of Celestial Emperor. They knelt down on one knee and bowed respectfully. They reported respectfully, "The bastards of the Celestial Court came as Lord Celestial Emperor expected. We killed them all with the killing formation engraved by Lord Celestial Emperor and the others. None of our people or stars were damaged." These people were all geniuses of the Celestial Court. They were very strong generals in the Celestial Court. With the help of all kinds of resources and precious scriptures Lin Tian brought back every time, they were now at the peak of the ruler realm and were guarding this starry sky. In the current Immortal Court, the number of great generals at this level was not small. In fact, there were many of them. "Rise." "Well done." Lin Tian nodded and said, "Continue to guard this area, Ka." Suddenly, not far away, a huge crack appeared in the starry sky, which made him stop talking. Chapter 2307. 10 figures walked out of the big crack in the starry sky. All of them were young, and their spirits were very terrifying. The weakest was at the early stage of the Great Void stage, and the strongest was at the peak of the Great Void stage. Looking at these 10 people, a faint light flashed across Lin Tian's eyes. He had found information about these 10 people in the mind of the 10th Divine Son of the Yellow Spring Clan. The 10th Divine Son of the Luosha Clan. Beside him, little Tai Chu, Wishing Crocodile, and the other generals of the Celestial Court also saw these 10 people. They all narrowed their eyes and sensed how terrifying these 10 people were. Almost at the same time, the 10 divine sons of the Luosha clan who walked out of the big crack in the starry sky also noticed Lin Tian and the others. Their eyes narrowed slightly, and they all fell on Lin Tian. "Reincarnation body," one of them said, looking at Lin Tian. "Although we found out that you live in this low-level starry sky, we didn't expect to find you as soon as we entered the starry sky." The Luosha clan, the Yellow Spring clan, the 9 Nether clan, and the Underworld clan all knew about Lin Tian, the reincarnation body. After the Luosha clan entered this universe, they guessed that Lin Tian was in this universe. The 10 divine sons of this clan had been tracking Lin Tian, the reincarnation body. From some places, they found out that Lin Tian was the master of the Celestial Court, and the main clan was in the starry sky. Immediately, they stepped into this starry sky, but they didn't expect to meet Lin Tian as soon as they entered this starry sky. "This low-level starry sky is still so well preserved. Is the Celestial Court you created protecting it? You are quite capable." One of them glanced at the surrounding starry sky, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face when he saw that the stars were still intact. The Celestial Court? It's only one word away from the Celestial Court. You have guts to claim this name. He was the fifth divine child of the Lulsha clan and was in the middle stage of the Great Void stage. He moved as soon as he finished speaking. Like an illusory flower, he appeared in front of Lin Tian in the blink of an eye and slapped his palm toward Lin Tian. This palm was aimed at Lin Tian's face. Obviously, this person wanted to humiliate Lin Tianyi before suppressing Lin Tian. Pa! The sound of a slap was extremely loud and clear. Lin Tian stood quietly where he was. The fifth divine child of the Lulsha race, who had rushed over, was sent flying. There was a clear handprint on the left side of his face. Blood floated in the starry sky, and there were a few teeth in it. In an instant, the expressions of everyone in this place changed. Lord Immortal Emperor! The dozen or so generals of the Immortal Court were very excited. They didn't see Lin Tian make a move, but they knew that Lin Tian must be the one who sent the fifth divine child of the Lulsha race flying. Just now, when the fifth divine child of the Lulsha race stepped forward, the aura that naturally intertwined around his body made it difficult for them to move. However, in the next moment, the fifth divine child of the Lulsha race was sent flying by a casual slap from their leader. This made them feel both reverence and excitement. The other 9 divine children of the Lulsha race narrowed their eyes. They were all moved. Just now, the first divine child, Lulsha Yun, frowned. Even someone as strong as him, who was at the peak of the Great Void stage, didn't see how Lin Tian made a move. On the other side, the fifth divine child of the Lulsha race steadied himself. He was slightly stunned at first, but then he became furious. Reincarnation body! The fifth divine child roared, the veins on his forehead popping out. He obviously wanted to slap Lin Tianyi first to humiliate Lin Tian, but in the end, he was the one who was slapped by Lin Tian. With a boom, a shocking power of order rushed out of his body. The power of order of the fifth stage gushed out, and the power of order evolved into a sea of fire that seemed to be able to burn everything. It was mixed with an evil aura, which looked very terrifying. With a whoosh, he moved directly. He took a step toward Lin Tian, and the power of order pressed down like a vast ocean. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. He glanced at the fifth divine child and performed the reincarnation god slaying technique. In the blink of an eye, the invisible power of killing broke into the fifth divine child's body and hit the fifth divine child's spirit, shattering it instantly. Suddenly, all the divine light of order around the fifth divine child of the Lulsha race disappeared. The luster of life in his eyes also faded little by little. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared completely, and he fell into the starry sky. Fifth brother! The faces of the other 9 divine children of the Lulsha race changed drastically. Someone raised his hand and grabbed the fifth divine child. Then, he found that the fifth divine child was only left with a flesh shell. The divine child inside was destroyed, and there was no soul power left. It disappeared just like that. Reincarnation body, what have you done? The first divine child, Lulsha Yun, roared in a low voice. The power of order of the fifth stage spread out immediately, and the aura was terrifying. At the same time, the other 8 divine children also displayed the power of order of the fifth stage, and their aura was extremely powerful. The killing power was vast and mighty in this place. Facing such pressure, the little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile were still fine, but the other generals of the Immortal Court all turned pale. Although they did not show any fear, their instincts still made them tremble uncontrollably. They only felt an extremely terrifying pressure on their bodies, as if a sharp blade was pressed against their throats. However, in the next moment, these people's feeling disappeared. Outside Lin Tian's body, strands of light spread out and protected the group behind him. The enormous pressure from the 9 divine children of the Lulsha race was all blocked. He looked at the 9 people with a calm and indifferent expression. Now you can't even sense my attack. As soon as he finished speaking, the reincarnation god slaying technique was performed again. The invisible killing power fell in front of the 9 people in the blink of an eye, broke through their defense, and directly attacked their divine souls. In an instant, the divine light of order around the 9 people disappeared. The luster of life in the eyes of 8 of them disappeared rapidly, and they fell into the starry sky one after another. Their divine souls were all destroyed. You! The first divine child of the Luosha race, Luosha Yun, said in a trembling voice. His body was also trembling nonstop, and his face was extremely pale. His face was almost twisted into a ball at this time. It was because of the indescribable pain that had turned him into such a state. You're not bad to be able to withstand this attack. Lin Tian looked at this person and flicked his finger. A 9-colored sword she shot out and penetrated between his eyebrows in an instant. With a puff, a stream of blood splashed out. Luosha Yun fell into the starry sky. Like the other divine children of the Luosha race, his divine soul was directly destroyed. In an instant, the entire place fell silent. Then, excited voices rang out. The Immortal Emperor is invincible! The generals of the Immortal Court were excited. The 10 divine children of the Luosha race who were so powerful and terrifying were actually killed by their leader in the blink of an eye. Even the little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile could not help but feel their hearts palpitate. At this moment, their eyes widened. This kid, with his current battle prowess, it's simply... Wishing Crocodile could not help but gasp. P.S. The specific cause of Lin Tian's reincarnation body, as well as the relationship between the Lin Tian on Earth and the original Lin Tian of the 10 Directions Heavenly Domain, has been analyzed and updated on Long's WeChat public account. Everyone, follow Long's WeChat public account and reply with the words, Reincarnation Body. You will receive it. Chapter 2308. The 10 divine princes of the Luosha clan were all supreme experts in the Great Void Realm. The weakest one was at the early stage of the Great Void Realm, while the strongest one was at the peak of the Great Void Realm. All of them had cultivated to the 5th stage of the Order Realm. Each of them was much stronger than the divine key of the past. However, Lin Tianji had killed all of them in the blink of an eye. Such combat strength was too frightening, causing the 5 elements Crocodile and Little Grand Primordium's hearts to palpitate as their eyes widened. Lin Tianji glanced at Little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile. He knew why they were shocked, but he did not say anything. Continue to guard the place seriously, he said to the generals of the Celestial Court. Then, he left the place with Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu. Not long after, he appeared in another place in the starry sky with Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu. In front of them, there was a huge star in the starry sky. It was colorful and had a hazy aura. It was the 10 Directions Ancient Star. Dad! You're back! Just as he appeared with Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu, a figure rushed out from the 10 Directions Ancient Star. It was Ruxian. She had gone to the Tongheng Ancient Star with Wu Yi and brought Jiang Luoluo's family back to the 10 Directions Ancient Star. When she sensed Lin Tianji's aura, she rushed out immediately. Eh? Dad, your aura! You've reached the Great Void Realm? Ruxian rushed to Lin Tianji's side. In the next moment, she was shocked again. Lin Tianji had just reached the peak of the Void Transformation Realm not long ago. She did not expect him to reach the Great Void Realm now. Just reached it. Lin Tianji smiled and looked at his precious daughter dotingly. Then, he did not stay outside the 10 Directions Ancient Star. He, Ruoxian, Wishing Crocodile, and Little Taichu stepped into the 10 Directions Ancient Star. Stepping into the 10 Directions Ancient Star, he went directly to the Celestial Court of the 9th Heaven. When he returned to this place, Wu Yi, Ji Yu, and the others were outside the Celestial Court. They naturally sensed his return. When Ruoxian rushed out of the Celestial Court to welcome him, they were waiting for him outside the Celestial Court. Jiang Luoluo was with them. Lin Tianji's. Jiang Luoluo spoke. After so many years had passed, she became more and more lovely, not at all inferior to Bai Qiu, Ji Yu, and the others. She looked at Lin Tian and said, Thank you for asking the older sisters to help us. The 10 Directions ancient star was calm. There were no heavenly soldiers or generals of the celestial court. That was because the heavenly soldiers and generals were killed by the celestial court experts who were guarding the starry sky. However, Jiang Luoluo had received news about the celestial court and the great calamity from the celestial court. Now, as soon as the celestial court started the great calamity, Lin Tianji asked Wu Yi, Jiyu, and the others to go to the 10 Directions ancient star and bring them all to the safest place in the universe. This made her feel grateful and touched. It's good that you're fine, Lin Tianji replied with a smile. He and Jiang Luoluo had traveled together and fought together. They were both friends and comrades in arms. Then, he called a group of people and walked into the celestial court. This was the real headquarters of the celestial court. The celestial spiritual chi inside was very dense. It occupied a large area. Usually, there were many immortal soldiers and generals coming and going inside. However, it was empty and quiet at this time. This was because the immortal soldiers and generals of the celestial court were much stronger than the immortal soldiers and generals of the other branches. They were all sent to various corners of the universe to take care of the overall situation. Leading Wu Yi, Jiyu, and the others, he went straight to the huge training field in the celestial court. He propped up his perfect world and released Ning Yeye, and Shui Shui, and everyone in the small village in the barren world. Sister Wu Yi! And Shui Shui saw Wu Yi as soon as she came out of the perfect world. She pounced on her with shining eyes. From the first time they met, she had been full of respect and yearning for Wu Yi. She was already familiar with the environment of the celestial court. She knew where she was and wasn't surprised. Wu Yi chuckled and nodded at her. Almost at the same time, Ning Yeye and the others were released. They were somewhat surprised and couldn't help but look around. Brother Tian, is this the celestial court of the 10 Directions celestial domain you mentioned? A young man called Erju spoke. He was from the village in the barren world. He looked at Lin Tian now and then saw Wu Yi. He quickly bowed and said, Sister-in-law! Hello, sister-in-law! At the side, the other dozen or so young men were very strong. When they saw Wu Yi, they hurriedly went forward to greet him. Wu Yi and Lin Tian lived in the village for several years. They were taught cultivation by Lin Tian, so they naturally saw Wu Yi. They even witnessed the wedding of Lin Tian and Wu Yi. They also saw the youngest Ruxian. Wu Yi smiled and nodded at the group of people. He naturally recognized these people. Lin Tian looked at them and then at Ning Yeye and the others. He briefly introduced them to each other. Then, he propped up the perfect world and moved the dozens of mountains and territories out of the perfect world. The dozens of mountains were densely packed with ancient Tao patterns. They all looked extraordinary. These ancient Tao patterns are not simple. They contain extraordinary Tao rhyme. You can all comprehend them. It will be very beneficial, he said to the group. As he spoke, the group's eyes fell on the ancient Tao patterns on the dozens of mountains. Except for little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile, who knew about the existence of these ancient Tao patterns, the others couldn't help but be moved. Even someone as strong as Wu Yi couldn't help but have a slight change in her eyes. She clearly felt that these ancient Tao patterns were extraordinary. Yar used the heavenly secret divine skill to deduce where Bai Zhu and the others are now. I'll go and find them. He looked at Yen Yar. He knew that Bai Ziki, Ling Yun, and the others had left the 10 Directions ancient star to fight. He said, Let's find them first and let them comprehend these ancient Tao patterns. In a short time, their combat strength should increase greatly. Then, they can go and fight again. This way, their combat effectiveness will be much greater. As he said this, his eyes suddenly narrowed and he stopped talking. He looked outside the ancient planet. At the same time, Wu Yi, who was beside him, also looked out of the starry sky. They actually found this place. Lin Tian's eyes turned cold. In an instant, he disappeared and appeared outside the 10 Directions ancient star. Boom! Killing formations and killing markings intertwined around the 10 directional ancient stars. These were all new killing formations that he created with his Void Transformation Realm Cultivation base. Then, he used the Heavenly One Soul Mantra and Wu Yi's Soul Reincarnation Realm Cultivation base to engrave them here. At this moment, they were activated by the Immortal Court generals guarding the area. Boundless killing aura surged. Among them, there were 20 young men and 50 old men. Their cultivation bases ranged from the Absolute Void Realm to the Soul Reincarnation Realm. Celestial Emperor, there are new intruders. They are much stronger than the previous batch. I'm afraid it will be difficult to kill them in a short time, an Immortal Court general reported. At the same time, in the dense killing formations, the 20 young men and 50 old men in the Soul Reincarnation Realm saw Lin Tian. Their eyes turned cold. Reincarnation body, someone said in a deep voice. Chapter 2309. Lin Tian was not very familiar with the 50 elders in the killing formation. However, he knew about the other 20 young men in the killing formation. They were the 10 Shensis of the 9 Nether lineage and the Underworld lineage. Previously, when he had killed the 10 divine princes of the Rakshasa race in another star zone, he had thought that the people of the Heavenly Court would eventually find this place since they had been searching for him. However, he had not expected them to find him so quickly. Rumble! Outside the 10 Directions Ancient Star, dozens of killing formations were boiling. These killing formations were created by him and Wu Yi. Each of them was incomparably powerful. Even though the generals of the Immortal Court couldn't exert their full power, the killing power intertwined by these killing formations was still extremely terrifying and shook the 8 Desolates. The 10 Shensis from the 9 Nether bloodline and the 10 Shensis from the Underworld bloodline were in the middle. The 50 Soul Reincarnation Stage Elders were in the middle. At this moment, they were in an extremely passive position under the dozens of killing arrays. Reincarnation body, setting up killing formations is nothing. Do you dare to fight? The first Shensis of the 9 Nether lineage said coldly. His rank 5 divine power of order circled around him. However, this was nothing at all. The first Shensis of the 9 Nether lineage, who was at the peak of the Great Void stage, was nothing in front of these killing formations. If it were not for the help of the Soul Reincarnation Realm Elders from the 9 Nether lineage, he and the other 9 Shensis of the 9 Nether lineage would have been defeated by these killing formations. You, who are known as the Supreme Monarch body and also possess the legendary Eye of Destiny, do you not dare to fight with us? The first Shensis of the Underworld lineage said coldly. Lin Tian stood outside the 10 Directions Ancient Star. His eyes were calm and indifferent. He raised his right hand slightly, and signaled the generals of the Celestial Court to stop operating the killing formation. The generals of the Celestial Court did not hesitate. They immediately quieted down the killing formation after their leader gave the order. In an instant, the killing formation in this place dispersed. The 50 Soul Reincarnation Realm Elders from the Nether World and the 9 Nether World, the 10 God Princes from the Nether World clan, and the 10 God Princes from the 9 Nether World clan could not help but relax. The first divine son of the Underworld clan spoke. His gaze fell on Lin Tian as he coldly said, "Not bad, you have a soul." Boom! The dozens of killing arrays that had just fallen silent were activated once again. Their murderous aura filled the sky, as if they were about to disintegrate the entire starry sky. At this moment, Lin Tian controlled the killing formation and activated it with the Heavenly One Soul incantation. The killing aura exuded by the killing formation was hundreds of times stronger than the killing aura released by the generals of the Immortal Court. You're going back on your word. You don't dare to fight us face to face? Coward! The expressions of the 10 Shensis of the Underworld clan and the 10 Shensis of the Underworld clan all changed. Lin Tian had ordered the immortal generals to silence the killing formation here. They thought that Lin Tian had really removed the killing formation and was going to fight them head-on. However, they didn't expect that in the next moment, the killing formation that had just been silenced was actually activated by Lin Tian himself. Its killing power was even more terrifying. Lin Tian looked at these people and was too lazy to say anything to them. With a single thought, the dozens of killing formations started to boil. With his current combat strength, it would be very easy for him to kill these two people. However, since there were killing formations here, why wouldn't he use them? The two of them had only said a few words, and he was really going to fight them face to face? He was not that dumb. Clang! The sound of a sword rang out. At this moment, he personally controlled the dozens of killing formations in this place and activated them with the Heavenly One's soul incantation. Instantly, boundless killing aura spread out and enveloped the two god princes. You! Puff! Puff! Blood splattered everywhere. The number 1 god princes from the Netherworld clan and the 9 Netherworld clan exploded immediately. Their divine souls were also annihilated. He looked at the other 9 god princes from the Netherworld clan and the 9 Netherworld clan in the killing formation and controlled the killing aura to suppress them. Puff! 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 Blood splattered everywhere. These 18 people could not withstand the killing aura at all, and were all killed instantly. In the blink of an eye, only 50 soul reincarnation realm elders were left in the killing formation. At the same time, Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and the others stepped out of the 10 Directions ancient star and appeared beside him. You're not even in the Dao fusion realm. How dare you act so presumptuously here? You're courting death. Ruoxian snorted. She knew how meticulous the arrangements outside the 10 Directions ancient star were. All the killing formations were set up by her parents. Even an early-stage Dao fusion realm expert might not be able to break through them. These killing formations, and Shui Shui and Jiang Luo Luo also came along. When they saw the killing formations outside the 10 Directions ancient star, they could not help but gasp. The killing aura was too terrifying. Boom! Dozens of killing formations shook. Rays of killing aura shot out and shook the 10 Directions ancient star. Reincarnation body! Beast! The 50 soul reincarnation realm elders from the Netherworld clan and the 9 Netherworld clan roared. They came here with 10 god princes from each clan because they received news that Lin Tian, the reincarnation body, was here. They came here to suppress Lin Tian. However, they had never expected that the 10 divine princes of their respective factions would all be killed by Luo Yunyang. The 10 strongest people of their respective lineages were all super geniuses with amazing bloodlines. Their bloodlines were even stronger than the chaotic body, but they had all been killed on this day. How great of a loss was that? At this moment, the 50 people's eyes turned red and they almost went crazy. Kill! The 50 people roared and attacked the killing formations crazily. They stared at Lin Tian with bloodshot eyes as if they wanted to eat Lin Tian alive. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. He circulated the Heavenly One Soul technique and activated the killing formations even more. These dozens of killing formations were created by him and Wu Yi. They were set up by the two of them together. At this moment, as he activated the killing formations even more, the killing aura emitted by them naturally became even more frightening. Like a vast ocean of murderous intent, the unparalleled killing light pressed down on the 50 soul reincarnation stage elders. The 50 soul reincarnation realm elders roared and resisted with all their might. Rays of Dao light and order light shot out. However, these killing formations were personally activated by Lin Tian. The killing aura they emitted was not something the immortal court generals could compare to. The resistance of the dozens of people was completely useless at this moment. The Dao light and order light that the 50 soul reincarnation realm experts produced were all suppressed in the blink of an eye. Pooh! 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 Chapter 23:10. The killing aura was unbridled, surging violently. Among the dozens of killing arrays, only 13 elders were left. They had survived the killing aura, but all of them were in a sorry state, covered in blood. You guys are quite resilient. Lin Tian looked at these 13 people and felt that their cultivation bases were at the end of the middle stage soul reincarnation realm. They were only a hair's breadth away from reaching the peak of the soul reincarnation realm. With this level of cultivation and the special bloodline of the 9 netherworlds and the underworld bloodline, it was not surprising that they could withstand the killing aura just now. As he said this, he used the Heavenly One's soul art to activate the killing array here again, and an even stronger killing aura erupted. For a time, endless killing aura surged out with a rumbling sound. Each killing aura seemed to be able to destroy everything. The unparalleled killing aura immediately enveloped the 13 people and pressed down mightily. The 13 people's eyes were crimson red as they roared furiously. Strands of the light of order surrounded them and faced the killing aura. It was also at this moment that the starry sky rumbled, and 2 old men suddenly appeared. One of them was dressed in a gray robe, while the other was dressed in a golden armor. The moment they appeared, they shook the entire sky with violent energy, and the surging killing light that Lin Tian had unleashed was completely shattered. This is... Wishing Crocodile and the others' expressions changed. Lin Tian's pupils constricted. Dao Fusion Realm! His current strength was extraordinary, and when he was searching for the 10th divine son of the Yellow Spring clan, he recognized the 2 old men who had suddenly appeared. They were the Dao Fusion Realm's supreme elders of the 9 Netherworld clan and the Underworld clan. The killing aura was shattered. Within the killing array, the 13 soul reincarnation elders of the 9 Netherworlds and the Underworld bloodline were pleasantly surprised. Then, their eyes were filled with killing intent again. Grand Elder, our divine sons were all killed by the reincarnation body's killing array. The divine sons of my clan also. These soul reincarnation elders reported to the Dao Fusion Realm Grand Elders of their respective bloodlines. They all clenched their fists. What? Upon hearing these reports, the expressions of the 2 Dao Fusion Realm experts who had appeared in this place changed drastically. The 10 divine princes of their respective clans had found out that Lin Tian, the reincarnated being, lived here and had come here to suppress Lin Tian. Just in case, after the 10 divine princes and dozens of elders of their respective clans had rushed here, the 2 of them had also followed. However, they had never expected to hear such news when they arrived here. All the divine princes of their respective clans had died? That was the future strongest fighting force of their respective clans. For a moment, the eyes of the 2 Dao Fusion Realm experts turned scarlet, just like the Soul Revolution Realm elders. Bastard! Their eyes were filled with murderous intent as they stared at Lin Tian. At the same time, they raised their hands and mercilessly pressed down on Lin Tian. It also enveloped Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and little Tai Chu. The boundless pressure was terrifying to hear. The peak of the Dao Fusion Realm! Lin Tian was immediately moved. He had never thought that these 2 people's cultivation had already reached the peak of the Dao Fusion Realm. Immediately, he activated the dozens of killing formations here with all his strength, causing them to vibrate and release boundless killing light toward the 2 people. It was as if they could disintegrate everything. However, these 2 elders were too tyrannical. Both of them were at the peak of the Dao Fusion Realm. The killing formations here were still a little strenuous to deal with people of this level. The killing light released by the dozens of killing formations was constantly shattered. It was to the extent where the dozens of killing formations he and Wu Yi had worked together to carve here started to show cracks one after another. Reincarnation body, you won't have a good ending. Everyone around you will die. Within the killing formation, the 13 Soul Revolution Realm elders said coldly, their eyes filled with ruthlessness. The grand elders of their respective clans had arrived. They were all at the peak of the Dao Fusion Realm and were much stronger than Lin Tian and the others. Moreover, they could completely suppress the dozens of killing formations here. At this moment, they looked at Lin Tian and the others as if they were looking at corpses. Lin Tian's expression became very heavy. Beside him, little Tai Chu and the others were no exception. The situation in front of them was too terrible. Rumble! Within the killing formations, boundless killing light surged. Lin Tian activated the dozens of killing formations to their limits, and the killing power shook the surroundings. However, against people at the peak of the Dao Fusion Realm, these killing formations could only barely resist and were useless. He gritted his teeth and continued to activate the dozens of killing formations. At the same time, he opened his Eye of Destiny, and boundless providence immediately appeared. The Eye of Destiny. Suddenly, a vigorous voice rang out, causing the entire starry sky to tremble. Above the killing formations, two figures appeared. One was a hale and hearty silver-haired middle-aged man, and the other was a pretty silver-haired woman. Both of them were very energetic. This was especially so for the silver-haired middle-aged man. Although he looked like a middle-aged man, his eyes were extremely deep and weathered. They were like two eternal black holes. Just by standing there, the starry sky seemed to be suppressed. The boundless starlight in the starry sky seemed to tremble at this moment. Seeing these two people, Lin Tian was immediately moved. Especially when he looked at the silver-haired middle-aged man, his pupils involuntarily constricted. He had sensed this middle-aged man's aura before. Back in the void world, when he, the Emperor of Fairy Spirit, and Feng Xingtianzun had gone to the space-time space left behind by the human king, the Emperor of Fairy Spirit had summoned a wisp of his soul's shadow. The aura of that soul shadow was exactly the same as this silver-haired middle-aged man, but it was much weaker. At the same time, he looked at the silver-haired woman. Her aura of origin was very similar to little Taichu's. Yeah? Little Taichu's eyes widened. At this moment, he stared at the silver-haired middle-aged man, then looked straight at the silver-haired woman. On the side, Ruxian, Jiyu, Baiqiu, and the others were also moved. Even Wu Yi's eyes could not help but twitch slightly. At the same time, in the killing array, the two Dao Fusion Realms Supreme Elders of the Nine Serenities bloodline and the Underworld bloodline both changed their expressions. The old demon of the Fairy Spirit clan! You! One of them spoke, his voice trembling slightly. Beside him, the other 13 elders were all trembling. It really is! Lin Tian's eyes moved again. This silver-haired middle-aged man was the ancestor of the Fairy Spirit Royal Clan, the powerful existence that the Celestial Court called the Old Demon. At this moment, looking at this silver-haired middle-aged man, he finally understood why a tyrannical clan like the Heaven Protectors was so afraid of the little Taichu's ancestor, and why they were so concerned about the bloodline of the Fairy Spirit Royal Clan. This silver-haired middle-aged man, the ancestor of the Fairy Spirit Royal Clan, was actually at the origin returning realm. He was even stronger than the strongest existences of the Nine Serenities, Yellow Springs, Underworld, and Rakshasa races. At the same time, the others beside him were also shocked. Yes, Uncle Taichu's. Chapter 23:11. Everyone, including Lin Tian and Wu Yi, was moved. The ancestor of the immortal Spirit Royal family actually appeared at this time. Yeah! Little Taichu said, and its eyes widened. It stared at the ancestor of its clan, then looked at the silver-haired woman beside him, and its eyes lit up slightly. Almost at the same time, the silver-haired woman's gaze naturally fell on little Taichu, and in a flash, she arrived in front of little Taichu. Hug! The woman looked very young and was full of vitality. With a gentle smile on her face, she stretched out her hands toward little Taichu. Little Taichu blinked and responded in a childish voice. It immediately pounced over and rubbed against the woman's body. Its face was full of happiness, and its big bright eyes curved into small crescent moons. The resonance of the bloodline fluctuation and the incomparably close connection to the origin made it without doubt that this was its biological mother. After so many years, it was the first time it saw its mother. The woman's smile was even gentler. She had lived for countless years, but at this time, she was like a young girl, hugging little Taichu. Just like little Taichu, she also showed a face of happiness. The little guy finally saw its mother, Wishing Crocodile said from the side. Congratulations, Uncle Taichu, Ruoxian also said. Lin Tian saw that the little guy was meeting its mother at this time, and couldn't help but feel happy for the little guy. Little Taichu lay on the silver-haired woman's body with a happy face, then quickly reacted and pulled the silver-haired woman to Lin Tian's side. It introduced Lin Tian to the silver-haired woman, and then introduced Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and Jiyu to the silver-haired woman. Lin Tian, thank you for taking care of my child, the silver-haired woman said, and thanked Lin Tian Dao. She looked very young, and her voice was very magnetic. Then, she also thanked Wu Yi and the others. Senior, you're too polite. Lin Tian now. Almost at the same time, swooshing sounds could be heard. The two Dao Fusion Realm Supreme Elders of the 9 Netherworld clan and the Underworld clan who had come to this place retreated. They turned into 2 beams of light and rushed into the distance. In the blink of an eye, they were already far away. At the same time, the 13 soul reincarnation realm experts who were still alive also fled. At this time, with the appearance of the little Taichu's progenitor, these people no longer dared to stay here because they knew how terrifying the progenitor was. Even their strongest experts couldn't stop him. The immortal spirit ancestor looked in the direction where the dozen or so people had fled. She did not say anything, but a faint but extremely terrifying aura surged out of her body and spread out like ripples in water. In the blink of an eye, puff, puff, puff. Blood exploded one by one. Without exception, the dozen or so people exploded at the first moment. His divine soul was also annihilated, completely erased from this world. This scene caused Lin Tian to involuntarily suck in a breath of cold air. As expected of the immortal spirit imperial clan's progenitor. As expected of the old demon that even the heaven protectors were afraid of. He actually killed those dozen or so people so easily. However, when he remembered that the progenitor's cultivation was at the origin realm, he quickly understood. With such a cultivation, it was naturally very easy for him to kill 2 Dao Fusion Realm cultivators and 13 Soul Reincarnation Realm cultivators. At this time, a faint light flashed. The immortal spirit ancestor stepped forward and appeared in front of him. He looked at his eyes without blinking. The Eye of Destiny. This is the first time I've seen it. Not bad. To be able to control this pair of eyes, young man, you're really amazing. Looking at Lin Tian's eyes up close, the Origin Realm progenitor's eyes couldn't help but become even more profound. Senior, you're too kind, Lin Tian said humbly, and at the same time, bowed slightly to the progenitor. I'm not deliberately praising you. It's just the truth. The immortal spirit ancestor patted Lin Tian's shoulder in a very candid manner. Lin Tian maintained his humble smile. After a pause, he ordered the immortal generals of the immortal court to continue guarding this place seriously. Then, he invited the immortal spirit ancestor into the immortal court of 10 directions. Inside the immortal court, the little Taichu and his mother met for the first time. From beginning to end, he lay on his mother's body with a face full of happiness. Lin Tian felt that children were indeed the closest to their mothers. When the little guy reunited with his father, the immortal spirit imperial lord, he was far less happy to see his mother now. He smiled and didn't mind. After chatting with the immortal spirit ancestor about many things, he soon found out. The immortal spirit ancestor had been in seclusion all this time. Little Taichu's mother was guarding her. She'd just broken through to the origin realm not long ago. Old senior, since you're so strong now, why don't we just kill our way to the main clans of those clans and annihilate them? The whooshing crocodile couldn't help but speak up when it heard Lin Tian and the immortal spirit ancestor's conversation. It was itching to make a move. From Lin Tian, it had already found out about the strength of the 9 underworlds, Underworld, Yellow Springs, and Rakshasa, 4 great ancient clans. The strongest person in the clans was only at the rebirth realm, far from being as strong as the immortal spirit ancestor. Jiyu, Baiqiu, Yanyer, and the others couldn't help but look at the immortal spirit ancestor. It shouldn't be that simple. Those clans have existed for too long. The main clans are in a super great world countless times larger than the celestial realm of nothingness. There must be many shocking arrangements inside. It won't be that easy to destroy. Lin Tian Andao. The immortal spirit ancestor looked at Lin Tian and nodded slightly. She praised, "Young man, you understand very well." He continued, "Although the strongest of those clans are only at the rebirth realm, and to me, they are not a threat at all. However, the great world they have established is not simple at all. If I were to recklessly step into it, I reckon it will be very difficult for me to walk out again." The whooshing crocodile was somewhat disappointed. At the same time, it felt even more strongly about the terrifying power of those clans. Even the immortal spirit ancestor, who was at the origin realm, said that if he recklessly stepped in, You might not be able to walk out. Lin Tian had already guessed this. His expression didn't change as he continued to chat with the immortal spirit ancestor. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 3 days, Lin Tian and the immortal spirit ancestor talked about many things and learned many things. At the same time, he asked the immortal spirit ancestor to carve a 10,000 burial formation outside the 10 directions ancient star with his origin realm cultivation. It was enough to kill anyone below the origin realm. In the process, the immortal spirit ancestor saw the ancient runes on the dozens of mountains that Lin Tian brought back and placed in the immortal court's arena. She recognized that they were indeed left by an ancient origin realm existence. Then, she left her own Taoist rhymes in this place for the immortal court to comprehend. At the same time, she passed on some of her cultivation experience to Lin Tian. "Thank you, Senior." Lin Tian thanked her sincerely. The Taoist rhymes left by the immortal spirit ancestor were freshly left behind. It was much more useful than the runes on the mountains. It was very helpful in comprehending the Tao. Moreover, the other party's cultivation experience was of great significance to him. "No worries. Consider it a thank you gift for taking care of my clan's little one." The immortal spirit ancestor smiled faintly. She said goodbye and left the 10 directions ancient star to do some other things. Little Taichu's mother didn't leave with the immortal spirit ancestor. She stayed in the 10 directions ancient star. After all, the immortal spirit ancestor had already come out of seclusion. There was no need for anyone to protect her. It's still the same thing as before. Deduce the specific whereabouts of the white-headed pig, the hero, and the others. I'll find them one by one and study the runes I brought back, as well as the Taoist rhymes left behind by the immortal spirit ancestor. Chapter 23:12. The ancient runes and seals on the dozens of mountains brought back from the desert world were very amazing. They were left behind by true origin realm powerhouses. If one were to comprehend them carefully, the benefits would definitely be huge. Moreover, before the immortal spirit ancestor left, he left behind a thick Tao rhythm in the immortal court. It was even more shocking than the ancient Tao patterns. If one comprehended the two together, and used the Tao rhythm of others to stimulate one's own body, the benefits would be even greater. Lin Tian's idea was very simple. Now, he would first find Bai Ziki, Ling Yun, and the others who were fighting outside. He would leave some of the immortal soldiers and immortal generals of the immortal court to guard the starry sky, and summon the rest of the immortal soldiers and immortal generals to comprehend the runes and seals together. In a short time, everyone's strength would increase greatly, and then they would continue to fight. The results would definitely be much better than now. This was the so-called sharpening the axe doesn't delay the work of cutting firewood. Yenye understood what Lin Tian meant. She immediately used the divine divination technique to deduce the exact location of Bai Ziki and the others. She then told Lin Tian in detail. "Okay." Lin Tian nodded. On this day, he, Little Tai Chu, 5 elemental crocodile, and the others left together. According to Yenye's deduction, it only took them 3 days to find Bai Ziki, Ling Yun, and the others and bring them back to the immortal court. At the same time, he ordered Yitong, Little Fox, and Snow Wolf to summon about 10% of the immortal soldiers and immortal generals of the immortal court back to the main clan of the immortal court in the 9th heaven. He wanted them to comprehend the ancient runes and the Tao charm left behind by the ancestor of the immortal spirit race. Comprehend it seriously. You have 3 months to comprehend it. After 3 months, other disciples of the immortal court will come to comprehend it," he said to the immortal soldiers and immortal generals. "Yes. Thank you, Lord Immortal Emperor!" All the immortal soldiers and generals shouted in unison. Their eyes were filled with reverence. They could see that the Tao patterns and the Tao rhythm left behind by the immortal spirit progenitor were amazing. Their leader had called them back from the battlefield to share with them such a treasure trove. This moved all the immortal soldiers and generals. When they recalled how their leader would always bring back all kinds of heavenly treasures, ancient scriptures, and divine techniques after he went out to battle, he would hand them over to them without asking them to pay anything. Moreover, He would personally guide them in cultivation and help them solve all kinds of doubts they had on the path of cultivation. When they recalled all of this, the group of immortal soldiers and immortal generals were even more moved. They were all excited to have such a leader, and their eyes could not help but flicker. "We will follow Sir Immortal Emperor for all eternity. Even if they die on the battlefield, they will still be soldiers of the immortal court if there is a next life." A powerful immortal general couldn't help but roar. "I will follow the Immortal Emperor for all eternity. I will follow the Immortal Emperor for all eternity. I will follow the Immortal Emperor for all eternity." For a moment, all the immortal soldiers and generals shouted in unison. Their eyes were solemn as if they were swearing to the heavens with their souls. Xian Wang, Crocodile Ancestor, Shin Qi, Mu Xingshu, and the others had been called back. When they saw this scene, their eyes lit up. "Little Chu Chu, the young man who raised you is really good." Little Taichu's mother hugged little Taichu and said so. Her tone was always like a young girl. "Yeah." Little Taichu responded, his big eyes curved. He was very happy that his mother praised Lin Tian. The voices of the oath echoed in the immortal court. Lin Tian raised his hand, and the immortal soldiers and generals immediately quieted down. "Good," he said. "Time is of the essence. Start cultivating." The martial arts field of the main immortal court was very vast. Dozens of mountains with ancient Tao patterns were placed on the martial arts field by him. The origin returning Tao rhyme left by the immortal spirit ancestor was here, and the Bodhi tree was also placed on this martial arts field by him. On this day, he, Wu Yi, Ruoxian, Jiyu, Bai Ziki, Ling Yun, Little Taichu, Xian Wang, Crocodile Ancestor, and the others all began to comprehend the ancient Tao patterns and the Tao rhyme left by the immortal spirit ancestor. In this martial arts field, all kinds of strange lights intertwined, dyeing the sky with colorful lights. Buzz! The Reincarnation Heart Sutra circulated. After comprehending the ancient Tao patterns on the dozens of mountains, Lin Tian continued to comprehend them. At the same time, he also comprehended the origin returning Tao rhyme left by the immortal spirit ancestor. Suddenly, the nine-colored holy light intertwined in his body. As time passed, it gradually became more and more resplendent. As he comprehended these ancient Tao patterns and the Tao rhyme left behind by the immortal spirit ancestor, his divine sense of origin sank into these ancient Tao patterns and the Tao rhyme left behind by the immortal spirit ancestor. He only felt that the world had become clearer, and everything had become clearer. This was a very transparent feeling. He followed this feeling to circulate his holy power. His understanding of the Tao rhyme and the ancient Tao patterns and the Tao rhyme left behind by the immortal spirit ancestor continued to deepen. His essence, energy, and spirit were strengthened bit by bit. At the same time, his cultivation base was also increasing. Moreover, the speed of improvement was very fast. Then, in the blink of an eye, half a month passed. Half a month later, on this day, there was an extremely strong holy aura intertwined in his body. As he comprehended the ancient Tao patterns on the dozens of mountains, the rich Tao rhyme left behind by the immortal spirit ancestor, and the cultivation experience given to him by the immortal spirit ancestor, his cultivation base reached the intermediate stage of the great void realm on this day. His essence, energy, and spirit had an astonishing change, and it was many times stronger. In this regard, he could feel it. He did not stop there. Instead, he circulated the Reincarnation Heart Sutra even faster. He continued to comprehend the ancient Tao patterns on the dozens of mountains, and the rich Tao rhyme left behind by the immortal spirit ancestor. He continued to cultivate. In this way, a month passed quickly. A month later, with a rumble, another majestic holy power surged in his body, and his cultivation base improved greatly again. "The peak of the great void realm!" he muttered to himself, and a light flashed in his eyes. At the same time, in this martial arts field, the holy aura was constantly skyrocketing. The others were also improving rapidly. Ascension Realm 3rd level. Lord Crocodile is about to step into the ancient ancestor realm. Wishing crocodiles' howl could be heard. According to the division of cultivation base, from the 4th to the 6th level of Ascension Realm, they were collectively referred to as Ancient Ancestor. Now that it had reached the third level of Ascension Realm, it was only one step away from entering the fourth level of Ascension Realm and becoming an Ancient Ancestor. Lord Tiger too! White Tiger said together, like wishing crocodile, with a face full of excitement. The Tao rhyme left behind by the True Realm powerhouse was very amazing. Moreover, Lin Tian also passed on the cultivation experience that the immortal spirit ancestor gave to him to everyone. Therefore, in more than a month, everyone's progress was very huge. Lin Tian looked at the group and felt that they had all made great progress. Their combat strength had increased a lot compared to more than a month ago. Naturally, he was happy. After calming down, he re-immersed himself in cultivation. In the blink of an eye, another half a month passed. After half a month, his essence, chi, and spirit had improved a lot. His cultivation base had reached the peak of the Great Void stage. At this time, he realized that it was useless to continue to comprehend the ancient Tao patterns and the Tao rhyme left behind by the immortal spirit ancestor. After all, everything had a limit. If he continued to comprehend these things now, it would be difficult for him to improve his cultivation base. Chapter 23:13. The nameless Tao was a Tao that he had comprehended when he was half a step into the great Tao. Over the years, Lin Tianyi had been trying to comprehend it, but he was still unable to comprehend what kind of Tao it was. Even though he knew that it was very powerful, because he was unable to comprehend what kind of Tao it was, he gradually stopped using it in battle because it was difficult for him to unleash its true power. However, now, with the comprehension of the ancient Tao pattern seals on the dozens of mountains and the ancient Tao pattern seals left behind by the immortal spirit ancestor, his cultivation level had increased greatly, reaching the peak of the Great Void stage. More importantly, his understanding of the world and his own body had become more and more thorough, and the nameless Tao in his body had also become clearer in his perception at this moment. "I can do it this time!" Light intertwined in his eyes. At this moment, he was almost certain that he would be able to comprehend the nameless Tao this time. Immediately, the Reincarnation Heart Sutra began to circulate on its own. His essence, chi, and spirit were completely thrown into his nameless Tao. As he completely merged his essence, energy, and spirit into his nameless Tao to comprehend, his divine sense seemed to have been pulled out of his body and entered a hazy world, just like how he had comprehended the nameless Tao in the past. This great world was extremely vast. His divine sense resided in it. Time passed very quickly, like sand flowing between his fingers. As a result, just like before, he saw day and night change in the blink of an eye. He saw the 4 seasons rapidly change. He saw flowers bloom and wither, then wither and gradually regenerate. Everything in the world cycled like the sun rising and setting. His divine sense, or rather his will, completely resided in this world, transforming into his own appearance. He watched the scenes as he traveled in this world, rapidly experiencing the changes of day and night, the alternation of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. He watched as the flowers and trees grew and withered, then withered and reborn again. The cycle was endless. In the past, when he saw these scenes, he did not understand them very well. However, at this moment, these simple scenes caused his heart to tremble again and again. His divine sense gradually became more and more crystalline. He walked through this world. This world was extremely silent. It seemed like a dream, but it also seemed like reality. His soul consciousness became even more translucent. In his perception, this vast and boundless world gradually became clearer. It seemed like layers of thin veils were being lifted, and he was getting closer to the essence. His divine sense transformed into his body and moved through this world. Gradually, he stood there quietly and looked at the entire world. Then, strands of light appeared in this world. It was vast and boundless, and it seemed to encompass everything in the world. Following that, simple scenes such as the alternation of day and night, and the change of seasons quickly unfolded before his eyes. Time passed by day after day. In the blink of an eye, 7 days passed. During these 7 days, time flowed faster and faster in this great world. The Tao light in every corner grew thicker and thicker. All things cycle, cycle. As he walked through this hazy great world, he continuously watched the sun and moon change, as well as the 4 seasons. He muttered to himself on this day. As he whispered, the eyes of the body formed by his divine sense became incomparably bright and incomparably deep. The nameless Tao became clearer and clearer as he comprehended it. It was as if he would be able to comprehend it with just one more step. 1. His eyes became even brighter. The Tao light that appeared in every corner of this world was the Tao light of the nameless Tao. At this moment, they began to boil and gather toward him, crazily fusing into his divine sense. A gust of wind suddenly appeared in this quiet great world. Within the wind, everything seemed to be mixed with it. He silently stood there. The body formed by his divine sense was completely fused with the nameless Tao light. His understanding of the nameless Tao light increased even more, and his eyes began to twitch. Cycle, cycle, all things cycle again and again, growing and multiplying endlessly, he muttered. His divine sense moved. It is. Boundless light flowed, and the hazy great world suddenly changed. In an instant, it was no longer there, as if it had disappeared. His surroundings turned into another scene in the blink of an eye. It was a space that was like a desert. It was filled with the vicissitudes of time. It was dusky, and an ancient road seemed to originate from the origin of all Das. It led to the eternal unknown. Countless souls walked on it, heading towards the end of the ancient road. The eternal ancient road gradually became blurry, transforming into endless turbidity. Humans, birds, animals, ghosts, everything was contained within the turbidity. He seemed to be able to see a gigantic wheel within, supporting the operation of the great heaven and earth. Looking at this scene, his divine sense body shook violently again. The nameless Tao light that entered his divine sense body surged even more violently. Cycle! Cycle! These 2 words floated out of his mouth. The endless turbidity contained the huge wheel, and rushed into his divine sense in a flash. His divine sense also returned to his body in an instant. His eyes suddenly became incomparably resplendent, and strands of Tao patterns appeared. Boom! The entire celestial lyceum shook. The nameless Tao light exploded, dazzling and resplendent. With him as the center, a shocking storm was formed. In an instant, everyone was awakened from their cultivation. They looked at Lin Tian, and then they were all greatly shocked. Retreat! Shinqi shouted. At the same time, little Taichu's mother, Xianhuang, crocodile ancestor, Mu Xingshu, and the others also spoke one after another. Everyone in the martial arts practice field, including Wu Yi, quickly retreated and left the martial arts practice field in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, only Lin Tianyi was left in the training field of the Immortal Court, which was large enough to accommodate more than 10 billion people at the same time. Outside his body, the nameless Tao light was dazzling, as if it was undergoing a deep transformation. With him as the center, circles of Tao light intertwined, and hurricanes spread out one after another. Gradually, the nameless Tao light became extremely dazzling, and a vast and majestic aura intertwined. It was even more vast than the fortune of heaven and earth, as if it contained everything in heaven and earth. Sensing this aura, Wishing Crocodile and little Taichu's expressions immediately changed, and they couldn't help but tremble. Luan! Reincarnation! Reincarnation aura! Wishing Crocodile couldn't speak properly. In the past, little Taichu, and Lin Tian had mistakenly entered the reincarnation road and almost met with misfortune. They had clearly felt the aura of reincarnation. Now, Lin Tian's nameless Tao was no longer as hazy as before. At this moment, it seemed that the veil covering it had been lifted, and it was clearly emitting the same reincarnation aura as the reincarnation road. Boom! Dazzling Tao light intertwined. Lin Tian's eyes were deep as he sat cross-legged on the martial arts practice field. At this moment, he was like the master of heaven and earth. Vaguely, there seemed to be the sound of thousands of souls roaring out from his body, shaking the world. Vaguely, there seemed to be an endless broken world appearing around him, filled with the vicissitudes of time. Vaguely, there seemed to be a huge millstone suspended above his head, supporting heaven and earth. Strands of reincarnation light intertwined around his body, sacred, vast, and majestic. Finally, I've comprehended it. Chapter 23:14. Wu had reached the peak of order cultivation in the Divine King realm. Her cultivation aptitude was rare. When she first saw Lin Tian's nameless Tao, she had a vague feeling and vaguely recognized Lin Tian's nameless Tao. However, at that time, she didn't tell Lin Tian what the nameless Tao was and that Lin Tian needed to comprehend it himself. This Tao was very special and important. If Lin Tian didn't comprehend it himself, and was told in advance by someone else, it would affect the power of this Tao that Lin Tian controlled in the future. In the end, he might not even be able to comprehend its essence on his own. More than 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, in the Immortal Court, Lin Tian finally comprehended this Tao on his own. Boom! Billowing saint energy intertwined and shook the heavens. Lin Tian sat alone in the Immortal Court's martial arts arena. Reincarnation Tao light intertwined around him, and the light of reincarnation was extremely vast. He sat there cross-legged as if he was heaven and earth. That nameless Tao is actually reincarnation? Wishing Crocodile was shocked. Reincarnation was the foundation of this greater heaven and earth, the supreme power of this greater heaven and earth. The Tao that Lin Tianyi had always controlled was reincarnation. Its voice spread everywhere, and the aura of the light of reincarnation was so obvious. Therefore, at this moment, everyone here instantly knew that Lin Tian's nameless Tao was reincarnation. They were all shocked. Father, he controls reincarnation? Ruo Xian's eyes were filled with shock. Beside her, Shen Qi, Mu Xingshu, Xian Wang, and the crocodile ancestor were also shocked. Jiyu, Bai Qiu, and the others were also shocked. Reincarnation was the foundation of this realm. Lin Tian actually controlled that supreme power. His Excellency the Immortal Emperor controls reincarnation? The immortal soldiers and immortals of the Immortal Court couldn't help but tremble. Boom! Tao light surged and a hurricane swept across. On the martial arts arena, the reincarnation Tao light and light of reincarnation outside Lin Tian's body grew stronger with the passage of time. Reincarnation, he said. As he spoke, his eyes became extremely deep at this moment. It was as if he had seen through everything in the world at this moment. As the word reincarnation left his mouth, the reincarnation Tao light and reincarnation light outside his body boiled again. In all directions, everything was suppressed by the aura of reincarnation. He resided alone on the martial practice grounds while the reincarnation Tao glow and reincarnation light interweaved around his body. After he comprehended the nameless Tao as reincarnation, he was actually shocked in his heart. After all, reincarnation was too extraordinary, and it was capable of suppressing all forces in the world. The nameless Tao that he had always controlled was actually reincarnation. How could he not be shocked? However, he forcefully suppressed his shock and astonishment at this moment. He had comprehended the nameless Tao as reincarnation. Now, he needed to continue comprehending it seriously. Buzz! He sat cross-legged on the training grounds and continued to comprehend the Tao of reincarnation. Strands of Tao insight ceaselessly appeared in his heart. On this day, everything in the world became extremely clear at this moment. His hands began to move unconsciously. Relying on his instinctive subconscious at this moment, he drew mysterious and unfathomable trajectories of Tao. For a time, the sky shook, the wind blew, and the clouds surged. The reincarnation Tao glow and reincarnation light outside his body became even stronger. It was as if a reincarnation volcano had erupted here. The terrifying aura of reincarnation spread out in waves. The void in all directions shook violently. Endless Tao glow appeared in the world at this moment, as if it had a consciousness of its own. It was as if it was afraid and panicked. It was also as if it was a subject, worshipping him from all directions. The Tao of heaven and earth is trembling in submission. Mu Xingshu's eyes kept flickering. The Tao surged and surrounded Lin Tian, trembling as if it had a consciousness of its own. Everyone could clearly feel it. Everyone's heart trembled at this scene. At this moment, Lin Tian, who controlled reincarnation, was like the master of the world. Buzz! The reincarnation light intertwined, and the reincarnation Tao glow surrounded him. Lin Tian suppressed the shock in his heart, and continued to comprehend and deduce seriously. The trajectories of his hands became more and more mysterious and profound. The world seemed to pulse with his hands. At this moment, everything seemed to revolve around him. His eyes became deeper and deeper. As he continued to deduce and comprehend reincarnation, his essence, energy, and soul soared rapidly. It was also at this moment that a blurry image suddenly appeared in his mind. There was a bloody mist exploding, and there was a figure flying into the distance. Although it was incomparably blurry, it shook his mind, causing him to involuntarily tremble violently. Cough! The reincarnation Tao glow intertwined outside his body. In an instant, it became chaotic. His body trembled violently, and he couldn't help coughing out a mouthful of blood essence. Almost at the same time, in a barren mountain in the ninth heaven, a huge pit trembled, and a monstrous black light rushed out. It was mixed with extremely dense soul energy. In the center of the black light was a ball of crystal light. In the blink of an eye, it crossed the endless sky and appeared above the immortal court. Under the shocked eyes of everyone in the immortal court, it rushed into Lin Tian's body. Lin Tian trembled violently again. The extremely dense soul energy entered his body, causing his essence, energy, and soul to skyrocket. At the same time, the crystal light nourished by the endless soul energy rushed straight into his knowledge sea and slowly integrated into it. In an instant, more pictures emerged in his knowledge sea. They overlapped one by one and gradually became incomparably clear. He saw a peaceful small tribe. Not far from the tribe, there was a herd of sheep running. He saw strange and incomparably familiar faces. There were old people, middle-aged people, women, and children. They seemed to be smiling at him, warm and gentle. Then, the familiar faces cracked apart, and the bloody mist exploded one after another. The old, the young, the women, and the children disappeared one after another. The peaceful small tribe collapsed along with it. More than 10 figures stepped on the bloody mist and the remnants of the earth and disappeared into the distance. The reincarnation aura was completely chaotic. He coughed up blood again. The light of reincarnation splashed in all directions, and the myriad Tao trembled together. Around him, pieces of space were constantly annihilated. Ah! His eyes were completely red. Blood vessels intertwined, filled with hatred and pain. He was like an injured beast, letting out a heart-wrenching roar. At the same time, although the aura outside his body was extremely chaotic, it was constantly skyrocketing, like a volcano erupting. Such a change caused everyone here to change their expressions. Father! Master! Brother! Boy Lin, what happened to you? Lord Immortal Emperor! Ruoxian, Yitong, the little fox, Lin Shi, the violet fairy, the wishing crocodile, and the immortal soldiers and immortal generals couldn't help but speak. This sudden scene shocked everyone. Could it be? The white tiger trembled slightly, remembering Lin Tian in the battle in the illusory flame star ocean. His memories! Rumble! The chaotic reincarnation aura shook, and the surrounding space continued to collapse. On the training field, Lin Tian roared. His eyes were filled with hatred and pain. He was almost crazy. Suddenly, he rushed out of the immortal court. At the same time, the sky shook, and thunder rumbled. Chapter 23:15. The thunder vortex stretched across the sky, and black lightning bolts shot out one after another. The aura of destruction was overwhelming. Heavenly tribulation! He stepped into the soul rebirth realm? The whooshing crocodile's expression changed again. But soon, this heavenly tribulation was ignored by it. Compared to the heavenly tribulation, Lin Tian's current situation made it more worried. Dad, where are you going? Ruoxian was anxious. This was the second time she saw her father like this. She was completely filled with anxiety and worry. Wui also couldn't be as calm as usual. She pulled Ruoxian and instantly left the immortal court, chasing after Lin Tian. However, at this moment, Lin Tian's speed was too fast. Even someone as strong as her couldn't catch up with him. In an instant, she lost sight of Lin Tian. However, the thunder vortex in the sky was incomparably eye-catching. She took Ruoxian and chased down the thunder vortex. She knew very well that the thunder vortex was the convergence of the heavenly tribulation. Wherever the heavenly tribulation was, the center was where Lin Tian was. Boom! Thunder rumbled, shaking the heavens. Lin Tian had already left the immortal court far away. The reincarnation aura around his body was extremely chaotic. At this moment, he appeared in a barren mountain and stepped straight into a large pit. This was the most dangerous forbidden area in the ninth heaven. It was a true life-forbidden zone that swallowed all life that stepped into it. Many Empyreans from the sealed dust ancient region who had invaded this territory died here. However, on this day, as he stepped into the pit, there was no fluctuation. The light of reincarnation intertwined around his body. Although it was chaotic, it illuminated the surroundings. At the bottom of the pit, there was a small spiritual domain. He stepped into the pit and directly stepped into the small spiritual domain. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at the center of the spiritual domain. In front of him, there were broken ruins. There were stone debris, wood chips, and rubble. He could vaguely tell that it was a small destroyed tribe. The chaotic aura of reincarnation intertwined around his body. He rushed here and looked at the broken ruins in front of him. His eyes turned red. In an instant, as if he had lost all his strength, he knelt down outside the ruins. His slender body couldn't stop trembling. Grandfather, third uncle, third aunt, Bei Xiong Zi. Looking at the broken ruins, his voice choked up as he called out a strange yet familiar word. Tears appeared in his eyes that were filled with pain and slid down his cheeks. Boom! Spirit realm suddenly shook as a destructive aura pressed down from the outside. Bolts of lightning could not help but appear in this spirit realm. However, in the next moment, the tremors disappeared along with the lightning arcs in the spirit realm. An old drunkard appeared in this spirit realm without a sound. Qin Xian, Feng Tianzuan, and the others followed him. Lin Tian felt something and looked back. His gaze fell on an old drunkard. He was stunned for a moment, and his body trembled. Master! His voice choked up even more as more tears gushed out. The vast amount of soul energy that had rushed into his body earlier had wrapped around his original memories. He recalled everything on this day. He was the 10th disciple of the human king. In order to take revenge, he had once done everything he could to become a reincarnation body. His master broke through the cycle of reincarnation and brought him into the cycle of reincarnation with his master's wife. He reincarnated on that day, and his master and wife reincarnated on that day. Now, looking at an old drunkard, although his appearance was different, he would never forget the familiar aura. This was his master, the human king. He had been his master in his previous life, and he was still his master in this life. An old drunkard slowly walked closer. His right hand landed on Lin Tian's head and then withdrew. He did not say anything, but his eyes were very gentle. Little 10. Qin Xian also came closer. Her eyes were filled with love and heartache. Little junior brother! Feng Tianzuan and Ao Tianzuan came forward. Their eyes were filled with love and heartache. Little junior brother, it's really you! Celestial Lord Primal Case, Celestial Lord Solar, Celestial Lord Zonglong, Celestial Lord Tain, Celestial Lord Daoran, the Array Emperor, and the Medicine Emperor came forward. Their eyes were filled with the excitement of reunion. Not long ago, an old drunkard, Qin Xian, and the others found them. At that time, Feng Tianzuan had already told them that Lin Tian, whom they had met before, was their little junior brother. But now, seeing him for real, and Lin Tian had recovered his memories, they still could not hide their excitement. But soon, the 7 of them, like Qing Xian, Feng Xintianzuan, and Ao Jiantianzuan, all showed heartache. Now that Lin Tian had recovered his memories, they knew that it was equivalent to experiencing the pain of the past all over again. Lin Tian looked at them and said in a choked voice, "Master's wife, eldest senior brother, second senior brother, third senior brother, ninth senior brother." Recalling everything that had happened in the past, he naturally recognized these people in front of him. The hatred of the past drowned him like endless darkness, causing him incomparable pain. At this moment, at this time, looking at them, he seemed to find a wisp of warm fire in the darkness. More tears flowed uncontrollably. He raised his hand to wipe them away, but as soon as he wiped them away, new tears flowed out. The pain brought by hatred made his tears flow like a torrent that could not be stopped. "Cry if you want. No one will laugh at you," an old drunkard said. Lin Tian allowed his tears to fall. He looked at the ruins in front of him again, and knelt down in front of the ruins. It was also at this time that Wu Yi stepped into the spirit realm with Ruoxian. Jiyu, Baiqiu, Shuiyi, Sushu, Lin Shi, Violet Fairy, Yen Yer, and the others followed closely behind. Some powerful immortal generals also stepped into the spirit realm. They instantly saw Lin Tian. "Father! Master! Lin Tian! Brother! Lord Immortal Emperor!" Everyone spoke one after another. Their gazes all fell on Lin Tian. At this time, they completely ignored an old drunkard and the others. Even though some of them already knew that an old drunkard was the legendary human king, they did not care at all. At this time, all of them were more concerned about Lin Tian. Hearing the familiar voices, Lin Tian trembled. He knew that Wu Yi and Ruoxian had arrived, but he did not turn around. He did not make a sound. He did not want them to see him cry. "Father!" Looking at Lin Tian's back, Ruoxian panicked. They were connected by blood. At this moment, she could clearly feel her father's pain. She immediately ran towards Lin Tian. An old drunkard raised his hand and stopped her. As a master, he naturally knew what his disciple was thinking. "Grand Master! Let me pass!" Ruoxian did not understand why an old drunkard stopped her. "Let him have some peace," an old drunkard said gently. As an old drunkard stopped Ruoxian, and as an old drunkard spoke, Jiyu, Baiqiu, and the others were also puzzled. They did not understand why an old drunkard did not let Ruoxian pass. At the same time, Xianhuang finally noticed an old drunkard. At first, it was slightly suspicious, but then its expression changed drastically. "You! Human King?" It originally came for Lin Tian. At this time, it felt the familiar aura of an old drunkard. Its expression changed drastically. It was clearly the aura of a human king. It had seen a human king before, so it could not be wrong about the aura of a human king. Then, it saw Qing Xian at the side and was shocked again. "Saintess of all heavens! You, how did you?" On the side, the crocodile ancestor was also shocked. Like Xianhuang, it had seen the human king and the saintess of all heavens before and clearly remembered their auras. At this time, it saw an old drunkard and Qing Xian. Although the two's appearance was completely different from before, their auras were exactly the same. That was the origin aura. It was absolutely impossible to be wrong. Then, the two people who were shocked couldn't help but look at Lin Tian. "Then he is your little disciple? The little guy from back then?" Xianhuang looked at Lin Tian with shock in its eyes. "P.S. Let's talk about something. I believe many of you have already noticed. Recently, Dragon has adjusted the update time of Shifang. The 2 chapters of the day are released before 8 a.m. every day. This is so that you can see it immediately when you wake up every day. You don't have to check your phone from time to time to wait for the update of the day. Then, let's talk about another thing. In the past 6 months, a lot of things have happened in Dragon's life. Because of the lack of exercise, his physical fitness is quite poor. He has been recuperating with Chinese medicine and exercise for the past 6 months. Therefore, The number of updates in the past 6 months is low, and the update time is unstable. Here, I sincerely apologize to everyone. Because of the update problem, there are a lot of unfriendly comments in the book review section. Even many people who read pirated copies of the book came to the book review section to curse. Those words were really unpleasant. Forget it, Dragon won't mention how unpleasant it was. Dragon has been reading, but he didn't respond. Firstly, Dragon has never liked to argue with people. Secondly, and most importantly, the updates in the past 6 months were really not good. Dragon is very regretful about this. After that, there were also some people who were cursing the fact that there were too many realms, and that there was no end to the story. Here, Dragon would like to inform everyone that these were all set from the very beginning. The structure of this book was very large, and it naturally involved a lot of realms and regions. It would take a lot of time to finish writing. In addition, to tell everyone the truth, if Dragon finishes this book now and starts a new one, the royalties will definitely be much higher than if he continues to write this book. Moreover, this book has been written until now with more than 6 million words. As more and more things are involved, it will be very tiring and exhausting to write. However, Dragon didn't finish it for no other reason than to write a complete story for everyone to read. If he finishes it now, Dragon feels that he is being irresponsible to the readers. For example, when Dragon wrote his first book, The Immortal God's Tribulation, the subscriptions were in the double digits. There was basically no royalties, but Dragon still insisted on finishing it just to be responsible to the readers who were still reading it. In short, how should I put it? Please read the book rationally and civilly. In life, no one has it easy. Let me tell everyone in advance that next month, Dragon will release 5 chapters a day from the 1st to the 3rd of the month. After that, depending on the situation, I will decide how many chapters one will release. I believe that I will not disappoint everyone. Chapter 23:16. It's really him? Xuanhuang's eyes flickered violently as it looked at Lin Tian's back. It had gone to the Human King Valley to challenge the Human King and lived there for a while. Naturally, it knew about the Human King's youngest disciple and knew a lot about him. It had seen Lin Tian in this life in the Xianhuang Valley of the mysterious ancient macro world and felt that Lin Tian had cultivated all the techniques of Fengxing Tianzuan and the others. It had suspected that Lin Tian was the reincarnation of the Human King's youngest disciple, but because it didn't sense any familiar aura, it denied that conjecture. But now, seeing that an old drunkard, the Human King, Qing Xian, the saintess of all heavens, and Fengxing Tianzuan and the others were here, it was clear that they had all come for Lin Tian. It had guessed correctly when it first saw Lin Tian. Lin Tian was the Human King's youngest disciple. When its words sounded, the amount of information contained within immediately made by Qiu, Jiyu, Shuiyi, Su Shu, Lin Shi, Violet Fairy, Yen Yer, Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong and the others, as well as Immortal Court's immortal generals, all of them were greatly shocked. Lin Tian was the reincarnation of the Human King's youngest disciple? An old drunkard was the legendary invincible Human King? Qin Xian was the legendary Taoist companion of the Human King, the saintess of all heavens? Everyone was aghast at this moment, completely stunned by Xuanhuang's words. Only a few people, such as the little Taichu and the white tiger, who had known about this long ago, didn't change their expressions. Their gazes were still on Lin Tian. "Grand Master, let me go!" Being stopped by an old drunkard, Ruoxian refused to comply. "I want to go!" When she was in the illusory flame star sea, she knew her father's real identity, and an old drunkard's real identity. She wasn't surprised at all. She just wanted to go to her father. Hearing her voice, Jiyu and the others, who were shocked by Lin Tian's true identity, and an old drunkard's true identity, immediately regained their senses and looked at Lin Tian again. They were no longer shocked by Lin Tian's true identity, an old drunkard's true identity, and Qing Xian's true identity. They were only worried about Lin Tian at this moment. Now, Lin Tian's mental state looked very bad. "Let me pass! Let me go to Grand Master!" Ruoxian's voice rang out again, trying to break through an old drunkard's obstruction. It was also at this time that the space beside her trembled slightly. Wu Yi acted, and the formless space laws pulled her back to his side. "Let's go back," she said softly. However, her gaze was still on Lin Tian. Her gaze had always been calm, but it was constantly fluctuating. She controlled the space laws, and space was her weapon and her eyes. At this moment, even though Lin Tian's back was facing them, his back was facing everyone, she could clearly see Lin Tian's tears flowing down. Therefore, she knew that Lin Tian didn't turn around at this time because he didn't want them to see her crying. She also wanted to go to Lin Tian's side. She really wanted to, but since she sensed that Lin Tian didn't want them to see her crying, she could only suppress this thought. A man didn't want his wife and daughter to see him cry. He didn't want his wife and daughter to see his weak side. She understood. Why? Ruoxian didn't understand. "Let's go back," Wu Yi said very softly. She took one last look at Lin Tian's back and pulled Ruoxian out of spirit realm. She didn't care about an old drunkard and the others from the beginning to the end. She didn't only say, "Go back," to Ruoxian, but also to Bai Qiu, Jiyu, and the others. Jiyu, Bai Qiu, Sushu, Shui Yi, Lin Shi, and the Violet Fairy all looked worried and anxious. Like Ruoxian, they wanted to rush to Lin Tian's side. However, when they saw Wu Yi's reaction, they paused and looked at Lin Tian's back. In the end, they retreated with Wu Yi. Like Ruoxian, they all looked back every 3 steps and walked out of spirit realm. At the same time, Bai Ziki and the others and the immortal generals paused for a moment before retreating out of spirit realm together. "What a good girl." Looking at Wu Yi's back, Qin Xian said softly. Lin Tianwei trembled. He wanted to look back at Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and the others, but in the end, he didn't turn around. An old drunkard looked at him, paused, and said to Qin Xian, "Let's go, let him be alone." At the same time, he called Fengshen Tianzuan and the others to leave with him. In the blink of an eye, only Lin Tianyi was left in this space. The broken ruins were located in front of him. In Lin Tian's eyes, there were only ruins left. Tears kept falling down. The 9th heaven, the main clan of the Immortal Court. Wu Yi had returned to the Immortal Court with Ruoxian. Jiyu, Bai Qiu, Bai Ziki, Fan Ningxiong, Xian Huang, Crocodile Ancestor, and the immortal generals of the Immortal Court had all returned to the Immortal Court. At the same time, Fengshen Tianzuan, Celestial Venerable Primal Chaos, Celestial Venerable Solar, Celestial Venerable Zanlong, Celestial Venerable Tain, Aojian Tianzuan, Celestial Venerable Daoran, Formation Sovereign, and Medicine Sovereign also came to the Immortal Court together. Everyone was in the martial arts arena of the Immortal Court. "Martial Uncle, what happened to Father back then?" Ruoxian asked Heavenly God Bestowment and the others. "Great God, he has recovered his memory. Now, can you tell us?" White Tiger also spoke, looking at Fengshen Tianzuan. Around them, everyone in this place looked at Fengshen Tianzuan and the others at this time. Even Wu Yi was no exception. Fengshen Tianzuan looked in the direction of the spirit domain where Lin Tian was now and nodded. "When little junior brother was still an infant, he was picked up by the old patriarch of a small mortal tribe in the nearby mountains and brought back to the small tribe to raise him. The small tribe had more than 100 families, and the old patriarch was over 70 years old. He had no children, so he treated little junior brother as his own and took good care of him. Although the other people in the tribe knew that little junior brother was picked up from the outside, the simple life of ordinary farmers made everyone, like the old patriarch, treat little junior brother very well. In the small tribe, little junior brother really drank the milk of hundreds of families and ate the rice of hundreds of families. Although he didn't have parents, there were people who doted on him, loved him, and had playmates. Until one day, a dozen people came from afar. Because they didn't want to take a detour, they mercilessly destroyed the tribe. Everyone in the small tribe suffered because of this. Little junior brother just happened to be herding sheep on the grasslands not far from the tribe at that time, so he avoided the disaster. It was also because of this that he saw with his own eyes that the old patriarch who raised him, The uncle and aunt who doted on him, the playmates who grew up happily with him, turned into a bloody mist in that instant. Feng Tianzuan took a deep breath and said, "That year, little junior brother was 5 years old. That day, little junior brother lost everything." Ruoxian, Jiyu, Baiqiu, Shuiyi, and Sushu couldn't help but tremble violently, their expressions changing drastically. At the same time, little Taichu, White Tiger, Wuxian Crocodile, and the others' expressions changed greatly. Even Wui was no exception at this moment, her gaze fluctuating violently. Affected by her emotional fluctuations, the space around her started to distort. "Damn it! Damn it!" Some immortal general's eyes turned red. That kind of thing was equivalent to the extermination of an entire clan. Back then, their leader had endured such a thing when she was only 5 years old? Who were those dozen people? They were all from the Celestial Court, right? Ruoxian clenched her fists, tears gushing out of her beautiful eyes. When she was in the illusory flame star ocean, her father suddenly turned into a demon. At that time, she learned that her father was the youngest disciple of the human king, and that there was a deep hatred between her father and the Celestial Court. However, she had never thought that it was such an irreconcilable hatred. Back then, the Celestial Court had done such a thing to her father. The master of the Celestial Court, Luanhui King, the 9 divine guards, the patriarchs of the Hades bloodline, the 9 serenities bloodline, the Yellow Spring bloodline, and the Rakshasa bloodline, Feng Tianzun said. At that time, they followed Luanhui King into the primordial universe. They seemed to want to find something in this universe, but in the end, it was to no avail. The Xian Ming who appeared in the illusory flame star ocean was one of the 9 divine guards of Luanhui King. He was killed by Master. Empyrean Roving Sword continued Empyrean Divine Seal's words. Another one of the 9 divine guards was suppressed by Honorable Master before the junior apprentice brother entered Samsara. His divine soul was extracted and used to nourish the junior apprentice brother's source memories. That's because, unlike the soul, when memories leave a person's body, they need to be nourished by powerful soul energy in order to be preserved. Master extracted youngest junior martial brother's original memories and used that divine guard's soul energy to nourish and preserve them. This is so that youngest junior martial brother can rely on this original memory to recall everything that happened in the past after he reincarnated. Junior brother's reincarnation was different from a simple reincarnation. Only in this way could he truly remember the past. He continued, "Back then, Master left the divine guard's consciousness so that his soul could nourish junior brother's original memory. At the same time, he also made him face the ruins of the tribe that junior brother had moved to in the spirit domain, so that he could repent in front of the ruins of the tribe at every moment. Not long ago, after junior brother saw Xian Ming turn into a demon in the illusory flame star ocean, Master erased his consciousness. Back then, the 9 of them only knew that their junior brother had an irreconcilable feud with the Celestial Court, but they didn't know who in the Celestial Court he had a grudge against. An old drunkard had told them some other things at the same time. His tribe was destroyed. The old patriarch who raised him, his aunt and uncle who loved him, his playmates who grew up with him, everyone was dead. From that day on, junior brother was filled with hatred. By chance, he met Master who had left the Human King Valley. He became Master's disciple and embarked on the path of cultivation. Solar Celestial Master said, "Junior brother's talent wasn't very good back then, but for revenge, he endured any hardship. As long as he could become stronger, as long as it didn't violate his morals, he would learn and do anything." During those years, little junior brother's cultivation was almost like torturing and abusing himself. As he said this, he seemed to recall the scenes of the past. This Solar Celestial Master, whose name shook the 10 Directions Celestial Master, couldn't help but clench his fists. Beside him, Celestial Master Zonglong, Celestial Master Daoran, Celestial Master Tai Yin and the other senior brothers were also like Solar Celestial Master. "Father," Ruoxian shed tears and choked with sobs. After listening to Feng Tianzuan and the others, her heart was filled with hatred for Luanhui Wang and the others. She also felt heartache for her father. Her father, who had always doted on her, had shouldered such hatred since she was 5 years old. Since then, he had been cultivating in a torturous and self-abusing way just for revenge. How much had her father suffered in those years? Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Wishing Crocodile, Little Tai Chu, White Tiger Yitong, Little Fox and the others were furious to the extreme. After listening to Lin Tian's past, their eyes turned red. The immortal generals of the Celestial Court were also furious. Their leader, who treated them as his friends, actually encountered such a thing. At this moment, they couldn't wait to rush to the Celestial Court's headquarters and chop Luanhui Wang and the others into minced meat. Bai Ziki, Yang Qi, Ling Yun, Fanning Xiong, Black Dragon and the others clenched their fists. Killing intent surged in their eyes. Lin, Lord Brother, Master! Jiyu, Bai Qiu, Shui Yi, Su Shu, Lin Shi, Yen Yer, Violet Fairy, Ziyu Yitong, and Little Fox couldn't help but have tears in their eyes. Wu Yi didn't say anything from the beginning to the end, but her emotions were fluctuating even more. The space around her collapsed inch by inch, and the entire Celestial Court was shaken. In this place, the sky instantly darkened. Lightning interweaved in the sky, and the 3,000 great Tao trembled. Mother! Sister Wu Yi! Lord Wu Yi! Everyone looked at Wu Yi. However, at this moment, no one was shocked by the terrifying aura that Wu Yi emitted due to his emotional fluctuations. There was only a deep sense of sadness, and there was only anger for Lin Tian. In the 9th heaven, under the heavenly pit, inside the spiritual domain, Lin Tian knelt in front of the ruins. Only the ruins were left in his eyes. Vaguely, familiar faces appeared in the ruins, waving at him and smiling at him. Tears fell like a kite with a broken string. Buzz! Outside his body, the reincarnation light interweaved, and his aura continued to climb. The soul energy wrapped around his memories rushed into his body. The soul energy was too strong, and it constantly integrated into his flesh and blood. In addition, because he comprehended the nameless reincarnation Tao, the reincarnation light and the reincarnation aura appeared in his body. The reincarnation light completely bloomed at this moment, causing his essence, energy, and soul to skyrocket. At this time, his cultivation base had reached the middle stage of the soul transformation realm, and it was still climbing. The reincarnation light became stronger and stronger as his cultivation base rose. Around him, the heavenly Tao surrounded him, and with him as the center, it seemed to have a consciousness of fear, like a servant bowing down in worship. Chapter 23:17. In the center of the spirit realm, there were only wood shavings, broken tiles, and broken soil. Lin Tian cried as he looked at the ruins. His slender body trembled from time to time. The light of samsara weaved around his body. The origin memories that had been extracted from him merged into his mind. The endless soul energy that nourished the origin memories was still merging into his flesh and blood. His mind, energy, and spirit continued to strengthen. At the same time, the nameless Tao was comprehended. The power of reincarnation and the light of reincarnation manifested, resonating with the origin of reincarnation, causing his origin of reincarnation to erupt with incomparably resplendent light. On this day, his samsara body truly awakened. It was at this moment that he reached great success. Boom! Monstrous saintly might surged out of his body. His cultivation continued to soar. In the blink of an eye, he reached the peak of the middle stage of the soul refining realm. However, this was far from over. The pure soul energy that nourished the origin memories, the light of samsara manifested, and the samsara body reached great success. All these factors combined caused him to continuously transform and advance. However, at this moment, he seemed to not feel any of these changes in his body. All that was left in his eyes was the ruins that he had moved here. Only tears flowed down his face. Time passed like the sand in one's fingers. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. On this day, his mind, energy, and spirit stopped rising. His cultivation stopped increasing. The light of samsara was completely suppressed in his body. His cultivation stopped at the peak of the soul-refining realm. On this day, his tears dried up. No more tears flowed out. He just stared blankly at the ruins in front of him. It was also on this day that someone from the spirit realm stepped into it. Wu Yi brought Ruoxian, Jiyu, Baiqiu, Shuiyi, Sushu, Lin Shi, and the Violet Fairy. They stepped into it again. Lin Tian turned back and looked at them. His lips moved as if he wanted to say something. However, he could not say anything now. Father! Ruoxian rushed over and hugged Lin Tian. Tears fell from her beautiful eyes. After knowing the past of her father, who had always doted on her, she felt terrible. Looking at her father at this moment, looking at the tear stains on his face, she felt even worse. Men don't cry easily. Not long after she was born, she learned everything about her father. He had once charged into the imperial city alone for Jiyu's sake. He had once barged into an ancient aristocratic family for Baiqiu's sake. He had once disregarded everything and sacrificed his life as a sacrifice to the samsara source energy for her mother. He had once suppressed the darkness calamity by himself. He had once led the entire 10 Directions Heaven region to resist the invasion of the Netherworld race, forcing them back to the sealed dust ancient region. He had once succumbed to the devil for her aunt, and killed a heavenly god tier powerhouse with his immortal king cultivation base. In her heart, her father was so great and mighty. But now, such a father was crying in pain here. Father! Thinking of this, she felt even worse. Tears kept falling, wetting her beautiful cheeks. Lin Tianwei trembled and reached out to wipe Ruoxian's tears. He could guess that his daughter already knew about his past. Of course, Wu Yi and the others knew as well. Lin! Big brother! Jiyu, Baiqiu, and the others all came forward at this time with tears in their eyes. After learning about Lin Tian's past, they felt as if a sharp sword was stabbing their hearts. Wu Yi came forward. Like Lin Tian, she bent her knees in front of the ruins, and gently held Lin Tian's hand. You still have us. We will always be with you. Hatred, pain, and sorrow, we will bear them with you. We will bear them together. Jiyu, Baiqiu, and the others said together. Like Lin Tian, they also bent their knees in front of the ruins beside Lin Tian. Lin Tian's slender body trembled again. He held Wu Yi's hand tightly and looked at Jiyu, Shuiyi, Baiqiu, and the others. He didn't say anything. He only nodded heavily and looked at the ruins in front of him again. In an unknown place in the primordial universe, an old drunkard and Qing Xian stood together and looked at spirit realm from afar. In this life, little Ten won't act recklessly, Qing Xian said softly. Because in this life, he has them. An old drunkard nodded, his eyes gentle. It's time to return to Human King Valley. That thing is still there. Across the endless space, he took one last deep look at Lin Tian. Then, the two disappeared without a sound. 10 Directions Heaven Domain, in spirit realm under the sinkhole, Lin Tian knelt in front of the ruins. His former home, everyone in the small tribe, the old chief who raised him, the aunt and uncle who loved him, the playmates who grew up with him, they were all his family. They were all gone. Not even their corpses were left behind. These ruins were their cenotaphs, where their souls were buried. Wu Yi, Ruoxian, Jiyu, Baiqiu, Shuiyi, Sushu, Lin Shi, and Violet Fairy knelt here with him. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. 3 days later. On this day, he stood up and pulled Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and the others up. They left Spirit Realm and set up a reincarnation seal at the entrance of Spirit Realm. All of you, return to the Immortal Court. He spoke to Wu Yi and the others for the first time in half a month. What about you? Wu Yi asked him. Ruoxian, Jiyu, and the others also looked at him. I'm going to do something. Lin Tian looked at them. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Wu Yi didn't ask any more questions and left with Ruoxian, Jiyu, and the others. Watching them leave, Lin Tian glanced at Spirit Realm. Then, he tilted his head and looked in 10 directions. In the next moment, he silently vanished on the spot and reappeared in the starry sky. After that, he vanished again and reappeared outside a great world. He directly stepped into it. This great world was thousands of times bigger than the void heaven realm. The air was thick with the smell of blood, and the majestic mountains and rivers had collapsed. He stepped into this world expressionlessly. In the blink of an eye, he stepped into the center of this world. In front of him, there were rows of immortal palaces on the broken land. Faint blood light crisscrossed around them, like the ghost palaces of hell. He came here and walked toward the group of immortal palaces. This group of immortal palaces was a temporary camp set up by the Yellow Spring race after they invaded the primordial universe. Human? There are still humans in this world? They should have been wiped out by our race. Outside the group of immortal palaces, many experts of the Yellow Spring race were guarding. The weakest of them was at the heaven-reaching realm. When they saw Lin Tian, their eyes narrowed. However, very soon, those people's eyes became cold and callous again. Some of them started to attack, and directly unleashed their killing intent. The murderous light, intertwined with faint blood light, fell on Lin Tian in the blink of an eye. With a puff, the blood light shattered like an egg hitting a rock. Lin Tian's expression didn't change at all. He continued walking toward the group of immortal palaces, ignoring the group of Yellow Spring race cultivators guarding outside the group of immortal palaces. The group of Yellow Spring race cultivators guarding outside the group of immortal palaces all narrowed their eyes. Then, a sinister light appeared in their eyes. "He seems to be quite strong," one of the heaven-reaching realm experts said. Divine chains of order appeared outside his body, clanging and piercing toward Lin Tian. Chapter 23:18. In the blink of an eye, the divine chains of order landed in front of Lin Tian and struck Lin Tian's body. With a cracking sound, the divine chains of order shattered, vanishing without a trace. Lin Tian's face was expressionless as he continued to move forward. Outside the group of immortal palaces, the powerhouses of the Yellow Spring clan were all moved. Some of the void transformation stage powerhouses narrowed their eyes. Immediately, dozens of people took action together. Each of them took a step forward and charged towards Lin Tian with boundless saint energy and order. In the blink of an eye, dozens of powerhouses charged towards Lin Tian. The saint radiance was dazzling and the order was intimidating. However, in the next moment, all the saint radiance and order were shattered one after another. All the people who charged towards Lin Tian disintegrated one after another, turning into dust and dissipating. They didn't even have the chance to scream. Lin Tian's expression didn't change at all. He still turned a blind eye to the people who charged towards him and continued to move forward. This? Outside the group of immortal palaces, the powerhouses of the Yellow Spring clan couldn't help but be shocked. However, the next moment, they saw Lin Tian continue to walk forward. At that moment, the expressions of the crowd turned gloomy and cold. They were the Yellow Spring clan. A mere human dared to barge into this place. Moreover, he seemed to be completely unafraid of them. "Kill!" someone shouted. Outside the group of immortal palaces, the crowd all charged towards Lin Tian. The surging killing light and the intimidating order spread all over the space in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian's pace didn't change at all. Any saint radiance that approached him was immediately shattered. Any Yellow Spring clan cultivator that approached him was immediately disintegrated and turned into dust. "What's the commotion?" a cold voice sounded. 10 elders walked out from the group of immortal palaces. Each of them had majestic essence, and were all in the Tao fusion realm. Then, in an instant, the 10 of them saw Lin Tian. "Reincarnation body!" Looking at Lin Tian, the 10 of them were immediately moved. After which, a bright light immediately intertwined in their eyes. They were the Taishang elders of the Yellow Spring clan. Their status in the Yellow Spring clan was extremely high, second only to the patriarchs of their clan. Naturally, they knew about Lin Tian, the reincarnated being. Moreover, during this trip to the Hongming universe, the clan had instructed them to find the reincarnated being in this universe and bring them back. After they came to this universe, the 10 divine princes of the clan had already gone out to search for him. Unexpectedly, Lin Tian, the reincarnated being, took the initiative to break into their battle camp. The experts of the Yellow Spring tribe who were guarding the immortal palaces kept attacking Lin Tian. Many of them were dismembered and died one after another. They were all frightened. When they saw the 10 supreme elders of their tribe appear, they all retreated. However, when they heard the words of the supreme elders, they could not help but be shocked. Reincarnation body? He's the legendary strongest king body? Someone revealed a shocked expression and looked at Lin Tian in disbelief. The person in front of them was the legendary strongest king body. The 10 supreme elders of the Yellow Spring clan were indifferent. One of them looked at Lin Tian. He was at the early stage of the Dao fusion realm. His eyes narrowed slightly. Peak of the soul reincarnation realm. His cultivation is not. Before he could finish his words, his eyes narrowed. This was because Lin Tian suddenly appeared in front of him. The whole process was silent. He did not see how Lin Tian moved in front of him at all. He could not help but retreat. You! Lin Tian was expressionless. He pressed his hand on the man's cheek and directly pressed him to the ground. With a loud bang, the ground cracked. Large cracks spread out like a spider web. At the same time, the reincarnation light appeared in the palm of his hand that pressed on the man's cheek and directly enveloped him. Poof! Blood splattered. Under the reincarnation light, the man instantly shattered. Even his divine soul was annihilated. In an instant, the expressions of everyone in this place changed. Supreme Elder! How can this be? The experts of the Yellow Spring clan who were guarding outside the Immortal Palace were all pale. They could not help but tremble violently. One of their supreme elders, who was at the early stage of the Dao fusion realm, was killed in an instant. These people were trembling, and the faces of the other 9 prime elders of the bloodline changed dramatically. Just now, that was the reincarnation light. He controlled the power of reincarnation? As the Dao fusion realm supreme elders of the Yellow Spring clan, their strength and vision were naturally far beyond ordinary people. At this moment, they naturally recognized the power of the light in Lin Tianshou's heart, and couldn't help but tremble slightly. The power of reincarnation. That was the most supreme power in this world that they knew of. Lin Tian looked at the 9 supreme elders. His expression was unchanged as he walked toward them. Outside his body, wisps of divine radiance emerged. The reincarnation light was pure and seemed to encompass everything in the world. Looking at the reincarnation light, the 9 supreme elders of the Yellow Spring clan could not help but tremble again. In the face of the most supreme power in this world, even though their cultivation was much higher than Lin Tian's, and 3 of them were even at the peak stage of the Dao fusion realm, they could not help but instinctively feel a sense of fear. However, this fear did not last long. In the next moment, the 9 supreme elders' faces turned cold. Although the power of reincarnation is terrifying, he's only at the soul reincarnation realm. His basic cultivation is far inferior to ours. One of them said coldly. Let's attack together. Use all our strength to suppress him and bring him back to the clan. This will be a great contribution. As he spoke, this person directly attacked. Boundless order immediately gushed out and pressed down on Lin Tian mightily. This was the order of the 5th stage. Tens of thousands of beast shadows appeared between heaven and earth. Each of the beast shadows seemed to be real. They were mixed with an extremely terrifying aura of destruction, as if they could devour everything. Suppress! The other 8 Dao fusion realm powerhouses shouted in unison. At this moment, they all used their 5th stage of order abilities. Immediately, the 9 people's order abilities merged together. Heaven and earth were completely enveloped, and the aura of destruction was extremely terrifying. Lin Tian's expression did not change at all. With the reincarnation light protecting his body, he took a step forward and passed through the order abilities that filled the sky. He appeared in front of one of the supreme elders. You! Hum! The reincarnation light intertwined. Lin Tian raised his hand and landed it on the supreme elder's chest. The reincarnation light directly drowned him and crushed him. His divine soul was also disintegrated and dissipated. How can this be? Outside the immortal palace, the group of Yellow Spring clan powerhouses trembled violently. Another supreme elder of their clan, who was at the Tao Fusion realm, was killed in the blink of an eye. The other 8 supreme elders also trembled violently. The reincarnation light that Lin Tian used was too terrifying. Attack from a distance. Don't give him a chance to get close. His reincarnation light doesn't seem to be very skillful. It seems that it can only cover the surface of his body. As long as we don't let him get close, his reincarnation light won't be a threat to us. One of the golden-robed elders shouted. He was at the early stage of the Tao Fusion realm. Immediately, the 8 of them quickly distanced themselves from Lin Tian and blasted out the order that filled the sky at a position extremely far away from Lin Tian. The boundless order was mighty like a surging heavenly river. In the blink of an eye, it pressed down on Lin Tian. Lin Tian stood facing it head-on. He did not have any intention of dodging. In his eyes, wisps of mysterious Tao runes appeared, mysterious and unfathomable. At this moment, it was as if heaven and earth were sinking and collapsing in his eyes. All the Taos in the world trembled in fear. In front of him, the reincarnation light appeared and turned into an ocean of reincarnation. It immediately annihilated all the order. After that, an abyss of reincarnation appeared behind the golden-robed elder who spoke before and sucked him in on the spot. With a poof, blood splattered. The golden-robed elder turned into a bloody mist and completely disappeared from this world. Such a scene caused the expressions of the other 7 supreme elders to change drastically. They felt that Lin Tian's control of the reincarnation light didn't seem to be skillful. It seemed that he could only use the reincarnation light at close range. They all distanced themselves and bombarded Lin Tian with the power of order from afar. They felt that Lin Tian wouldn't be a threat to them. However, they didn't expect that this was completely not the case. Lin Tian's reincarnation light could still attack them. At this moment, they looked at Lin Tian. When their gazes fell on Lin Tian's eyes, they couldn't help but tremble. Those eyes full of Tao runes were like a supreme symbol. They seemed to see heaven and earth collapsing in them. You! At this moment, the 7 Tao Fusion realm existences met Lin Tian's eyes and couldn't help but stagger back. Lin Tian looked at the 7 of them expressionlessly, and slowly walked towards them. He comprehended the nameless Tao as reincarnation and mastered the power of reincarnation. He mastered the reincarnation body and mastered another pair of ultimate divine eyes. Reincarnation eyes. At this moment, as the reincarnation eyes opened, he was like the monarch of this world. With just a simple step, the entire world pulsated with his steps. Thousands of Taos of heaven and earth appeared and trembled with his steps. Strands of Taos intertwined around him like loyal subjects guarding him and patrolling the world. As he stepped forward, his reincarnation eyes moved slightly and glanced at another early-stage Tao Fusion realm expert. Suddenly, endless reincarnation light appeared around this expert, and pressed down from all directions. This early-stage Tao Fusion realm expert of the Netherworld clan was horrified. He immediately activated the 5th stage of order to the limit. At the same time, he also activated all the other means that he could support at this moment, turning them into an indestructible defensive light screen. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the reincarnation light that pressed down from the surroundings collided with the defensive light screen outside his body, erupting with a monstrous holy radiance. Soon 3 breaths passed. With a crack, the light screen of order outside his body shattered. The reincarnation light continued to press down, drowning him in the endless reincarnation. Ah! His miserable scream was filled with horror and despair. This early-stage Tao Fusion realm expert was destroyed by the reincarnation light in the blink of an eye. His body and soul were destroyed. Reincarnation light overwhelmed everything. Go! Go! In the blink of an eye, only 6 of the 10 Tao Fusion realm supreme elders were left. 3 of them were at the peak of the Tao Fusion realm, and the other 3 were at the mid-stage of the Tao Fusion realm. One of the Peak Dao Fusion Realm's Supreme Elders spoke with a pale face. He quickly retreated, turning into a beam of light and rushing into the distance. Chapter 23:19. Lin Tian, who controlled the power of samsara, was too strong, causing the several grand elders of this branch to be shocked. Even the three Peak Dao Fusion Realm powerhouses were no exception. They were clearly one realm higher than Lin Tian, but they couldn't do anything against the power of reincarnation. Their scalps couldn't help but tingle, and they chose to escape. Swoosh! 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 The 6 supreme elders of the Netherworld clan fled far away in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian raised his head. The Dao patterns in his Rinnegan eye intertwined, and the void distorted. A large amount of reincarnation light emerged, cutting off the path of the 6 supreme elders. It rippled towards the 6 supreme elders like water ripples. The majestic and vast reincarnation aura instantly shook the 6 supreme elders back. You! Even if you control the power of reincarnation, your cultivation is still much weaker than ours. Don't push us too far. Otherwise, even if you win in the end, you will have to pay a huge price. The 6 supreme elders stared at Lin Tian in shock and anger, but there was an indescribable panic in their eyes. Looking at Lin Tian at this moment and facing Lin Tian's Rinnegan, they instinctively trembled, and even their souls felt cold. Lin Tian's expression didn't change at all. He looked at the 6 supreme elders and walked towards them calmly. As he stepped forward, the reincarnation light intertwined around him. Thousands of Das boiled and followed him forward like loyal generals. Seeing his actions, the 6 supreme elders of the Netherworld clan were even more shocked and furious. Lin Tian clearly wasn't going to give up. Moreover, he was walking towards them calmly. It was as if he didn't put them in his eyes at all. Damn it! Kill! The 6 supreme elders roared, and each of them pushed the power of order to the extreme. They also supported all kinds of remarkable abilities at this moment. At this time, they were very clear that Lin Tian wouldn't let them go. Therefore, they could only fight. Rumble! The 6 supreme elders' aura of order was very intimidating. At this moment, they were fighting for their lives. The aura they emitted was even more tyrannical than before. It was more than twice as strong. Lin Tian stepped forward. His footsteps did not change at all. In his right hand, the light of reincarnation intertwined and condensed into a sword of reincarnation. He opened his Rinnegan and saw through everything. As he took a step forward, the pulse rate of heaven and earth trembled as if he was stepping on another space. The boundless order of the 6 people couldn't land on him at all. He just calmly walked forward, unaffected by the myriad of laws. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of one of the 6 people. You! Clang! Lin Tian waved his hand. The reincarnation lightsaber in his hand slashed down, bringing with it a boundless and dignified great reincarnation aura, solidifying the surroundings. With a puff, this person was directly split into 2 halves. However, he was still much stronger than the Grand Elder who had been killed by Lin Tian. He was at the mid-stage of the Dao Fusion realm. Although his body was shattered by this attack, his spirit was not destroyed. He immediately withdrew his spirit and quickly retreated. Lin Tian looked up. In the eye of reincarnation, Dao patterns intertwined with strands of radiance. Beside this person's spirit, a reincarnation crack appeared. Woo! The sobbing of 10,000 souls sounded from within the crack, making one's scalp go numb. This person's soul was directly sucked in. No! No! Ah! A horrified scream came from behind the reincarnation crack. In the next moment, the reincarnation crack closed, and everything disappeared. The 5 supreme elders of the Yellow Spring tribe who were still alive shuddered. The other ordinary experts of the Yellow Spring tribe turned pale. Even a supreme elder of the Yellow Spring tribe who was at the mid-stage Dao Fusion realm was killed so easily. Lin Tian tilted his head and looked at the 5 Netherworld clan grand elders who were still alive. Without saying a word, he walked towards them. His pace was still calm, without the slightest impatience. Between heaven and earth, tens of thousands of Daos moved with him. Endless order surrounded him, surrendering to him and fighting alongside him. Even though his pace was slow, every step he took caused the entire world to tremble. At the same time, he raised his hand, and the reincarnation lightsaber in his hand slashed straight at the 5 Netherworld clan Grand Elders. With a clang, the reincarnation lightsaber slashed out a reincarnation lightsaber. Its aura was vast and dignified, destroying everything in its path. The 5 Netherworld clan Grand Elders' hearts trembled. They roared in unison, and all of their saint power was displayed at this moment. Boundless light of order, boundless power of Tao, and boundless power of divine power continuously rushed towards Lin Tian. Chi! A soft sound was heard. Wherever the reincarnation lightsaber passed, the light of order, the power of Tao, and the power of divine path were instantly shattered. Lin Tian took a step forward, as if he was really stepping on the nodes of heaven and earth. In a flash, he appeared in front of one of them. Clang! A sound like a sword chime was heard. He was expressionless as the reincarnation lightsaber in his hand slashed straight at this person. With a puff, this person did not even have time to defend himself before he was smashed into pieces. Then, endless reincarnation lightsaber emerged from where he stood, instantly drowning his shattered body. Ah! An ear-piercing scream was heard. This person's divine soul was not destroyed by the reincarnation lightsaber. However, under the reincarnation lightsaber that Lin Tian activated after the reincarnation lightsaber, his body and soul were completely annihilated. In the blink of an eye, there were only 4 Tao Fusion Realm Grand Elders left in this place. One of them was at the mid-stage of the Tao Fusion Realm, while the other 3 were at the peak of the Tao Fusion Realm. All of them trembled violently. How long had it been? There were 10 Tao Fusion Realm powerhouses in this place, but Lin Tian had killed 6 of them. They worked together to fight Lin Tian. Their cultivation was clearly much higher than Lin Tian's, but they could not stop Lin Tian at all. Whoosh! 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 Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Outside the immortal palaces, some of the ordinary Netherworld clan powerhouses fled into the distance. As some of them began to flee, the other ordinary Netherworld clan powerhouses also fled into the distance together. There were more than 100 of these people. The weakest was at the Heaven Ascension realm, while the strongest was at the early stage of the Absolute Void realm. At this moment, their faces were pale, and their eyes were filled with fear. They wished they could grow 2 more legs at this moment so that they could flee faster. Lin Tian's battle posture terrified them. Their lineage had 10 Tao Fusion Realm Grand Elders, but only 4 of them were left in the blink of an eye. In front of Lin Tian, they were as weak as babies. Moreover, several of their Grand Elders had already begun to flee. It was obvious that they could not stop Lin Tian no matter what. As such, at this moment, these ordinary Netherworld clan powerhouses were very frightened. They knew very well that if they continued to stay in this place, they would all die in Lin Tian's hands in the end. Therefore, at this moment, in order to survive, everyone fled into the distance. You! Seeing this scene, the 4 Grand Elders of this branch were both shocked and furious. They, the Grand Elders, were still unable to escape, but the other clan members had actually fled with a loud bang. They did not care about the safety of the Grand Elders in the slightest. Bastards! Bastards! They were all shocked and furious. At this moment, they thought that these members of the Netherworld clan had abandoned them and fled. However, they did not realize that they had done the same thing before, abandoning these members of the Netherworld clan and fleeing. Whoosh! 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 The sound of air breaking continued. More than 100 ordinary Netherworld clan powerhouses fled far away in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian's back was facing these people. His expression did not change at all. He slashed behind him with his sword. The dazzling samsara light swept across everything. In an instant, it caught up with the 100 or so Netherworld clan powerhouses who had fled far away. It directly drowned them and destroyed them all. There was no splashing of blood, no miserable shrieks. These 100 or so ordinary Netherworld clan powerhouses were directly turned into ashes that scattered all over the sky. Lin Tian's expression did not change. Holding the Samsara lightsaber in his hand, he walked toward the 4 Grand Elders of the Netherworld clan. In his hand, the Samsara lightsaber vibrated slightly. Instantly, the Samsara light in the sky surged, and a Samsara great sword appeared. The Samsara great sword was completely formed by the Samsara light. As soon as it appeared, it crushed tens of thousands of Deities and enveloped the 4 Grand Elders of the Netherworld clan. Facing this sword, the 4 Grand Elders of the Netherworld clan were shocked and furious. At the same time, they were terrified. They resisted with all their strength, using all their means to meet this sword head-on. Boom! With a shocking explosion, the space around them collapsed. All the saint power that the 4 of them had unleashed was shattered. The Samsara great sword also collapsed and scattered in all directions. With 4 muffled sounds, the 4 supreme elders of the Yellow Spring clan were sent flying by the shockwaves of the collision. They all coughed up blood. At this moment, Lin Tian looked at the 4 of them. His eye of reincarnation vibrated slightly, and a huge Samsara heavenly river appeared again. Rumble! The Samsara heavenly river was completely formed by the Samsara light. Within it, the Samsara light was terrifyingly dense. It immediately drowned the 4 of them. Arg! A scream rang out. In just a moment, the mid-stage Dao fusion expert among the 4 of them was directly turned into ashes. The other 3 were at the peak of the Dao fusion realm. After all, they were much stronger. Their bodies burst with saint light. They all roared and struggled to break free from the Samsara heavenly river. However, although they broke free from the Samsara heavenly river, the 3 of them also paid a great price. All of them were stained with blood and covered with cracks. At this moment, their faces were extremely pale. The 3 of them channeled their saint power to repair their bodies. However, they found that it was useless. They were injured by the endless Samsara light. At this moment, the 3 of them, who were at the peak of the Dao fusion realm, had temporarily lost the ability to repair their injured bodies. This made the 3 of them even more furious and terrified. The Samsara force was more terrifying than they had imagined. Clang! At this moment, the sound of the sword rang out again. It was ear-piercing. Lin Tian waved the Samsara lightsaber in his hand. With a slash, dozens of Samsara cracks appeared in an instant. As dozens of reincarnation rifts appeared, the roars of tens of thousands of souls resounded throughout the space. The 3 peak Dao fusion realm experts were horrified. They quickly dodged these Samsara cracks. However, although the 3 of them were not destroyed in the Samsara heavenly river, they were all seriously injured. At this moment, facing the dozens of Samsara cracks, they dodged for a moment. After a while, 2 of them were sucked into the Samsara cracks. Arg! 2 screams rang out. Then, the 2 of them disappeared. It was silent. Obviously, they had completely disappeared. Chapter 2320. The last Supreme Elder of the Yellow Spring tribe in the primordial universe was filled with fear. Lin Tian's reincarnation light was too terrifying. He was obviously at the peak of the Dao fusion realm, which was one whole realm higher than Lin Tian, but he couldn't resist at all. This person begged for mercy in fear. Don't kill me! The secrets I know will definitely be of use to you. Clang! The sound of the sword rang out. Lin Tian was expressionless as the reincarnation light sword in his hand slashed down. It was so fast that it instantly pierced through the Supreme Elder. Blood splattered everywhere. This Supreme Elder of the Yellow Spring tribe let out a miserable scream as blood kept flowing out of his mouth. At the same time, dozens of reincarnation cracks pressed down. The reincarnation light was vast and mighty, imprisoning and suppressing him in the blink of an eye. Let go of me! This person was terrified. He struggled violently, but it was useless. He couldn't break free from the reincarnation light's suppression. Lin Tian looked at this person. In the reincarnation eyes, mysterious and profound Tao patterns intertwined. Traces of reincarnation light flashed and disappeared. This caused this person to tremble slightly. His eyes became dull as if he had lost his soul. His divine sense of the origins silently invaded the Supreme Elder's sea of consciousness, searching for the location of the Yellow Spring Tribe's great world. After 10 breaths, the divine sense of the origin withdrew, and dozens of reincarnation cracks pressed down together. Poof! Blood splattered everywhere. This Supreme Elder of the Yellow Spring Tribe, who was at the peak of the Tao Fusion realm, was directly crushed by the dozens of reincarnation cracks. Back then, when his tribe was destroyed, the old patriarch who raised him, the uncle and aunt who loved him dearly, the playmates who grew up with him, everyone had met with misfortune. Even if he were to die 10,000 times, he would never forget the dozen or so people who made him lose everything. During those years, he also gradually found out the identities of those people. The master of the celestial court, Luanhui Wang, Luanhui Wang's 9 divine guards, the ancestor of the Netherworld clan, 9 Nether King, the ancestor of the Rakshasa clan, Luo Sha King, the ancestor of the Underworld clan, Nether King, and the ancestor of the Yellow Spring clan. However, at that time, he only managed to find out the identity of those dozen people. As for the specific location of those people, he didn't know at all. Only once, by chance, he got to know the whereabouts of Luanhui Wang and the others. He went to look for them regardless of everything. Unfortunately, he was no match for them at all. Just the aura of those people almost destroyed his body and soul. At that time, if it wasn't for his teacher, the Mortal King, who arrived in time, he would have already ceased to exist on that day. Now, he came here and killed all the people of the Yellow Spring clan. From the sea of consciousness of the Tao Fusion Realm Supreme Elder, he found the location of the Yellow Spring clan's big world. He believed that the Yellow Spring King was in that big world. At this time, all the people of the Yellow Spring clan who lived here were dead. He found the big world where the Yellow Spring clan was established. He waved the reincarnation lightsaber in his hand and chopped the temporary camp of the Yellow Spring clan into ashes in an instant. His expression didn't change at all. He closed his reincarnation eye and left on foot. After taking 3 steps, he disappeared. About 2 hours later, he appeared in a new big world and came to the center of this big world. As far as the eye could see, there were immortal palaces in the center of this big world. It was like the temporary camp of the Yellow Spring clan. This was the temporary camp of the Luosha clan in the primordial universe after they killed their way into the primordial universe. Previously, he found the temporary camps of the 4 ancient clans after they entered the primordial universe from the sea of consciousness of the 10th god's son of the Yellow Spring clan. After erasing the temporary camp of the Yellow Spring clan, he came to the temporary camp of the Luosha clan. A human? Just like the temporary camp of the Yellow Spring clan, there were naturally many Luosha experts guarding outside the temporary camp of the Luosha clan. They were all vigorous. When they saw Lin Tian, a human, they were a little surprised. The humans in this big world should have been completely wiped out by our clan. There are still humans alive? Someone was surprised. Don't talk nonsense. Just kill him, another person said. As soon as he finished speaking, this person moved. He was an expert of the 5th level of Heaven Ascension Realm. A mass of murderous aura pressed down on Lin Tian. Lin Tian stepped forward and opened his reincarnation eye. The murderous aura pressing down on him was instantly annihilated. At the same time, as his gaze swept across, the group of Luosha experts outside the immortal palaces trembled, and then fell to the ground one after another. Their flesh shells were intact, but the divine souls in their bodies were all shattered. He walked slowly and scanned with his reincarnation eye. In front of him, endless reincarnation light intertwined and the immortal palaces collapsed one by one. Whoosh! 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 The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. 20 figures rushed out from the collapsing immortal palaces. Each of them had a terrifying aura. Their cultivations were all in the Path Fusion realm. They were the supreme elders of this clan who had killed their way into this universe. These 20 people had branded the sacred rune array around the immortal palaces. Originally, They were discussing how to destroy this universe faster. Suddenly, they sensed that the sacred rune array was collapsing and the immortal palaces were crumbling. So, they rushed out at the same time. Then, when they rushed out of the immortal palace at the center of the immortal palaces, the first thing they saw was that the other clansmen guarding outside the palace had all died. Only their flesh shells were left. Then, they saw Lin Tian. "Reincarnation body, it's you!" The 20-path fusion realm powerhouses were shocked. One of their very important missions when they killed their way into this universe was to find traces of the reincarnation body. They had to suppress him alive and bring him back. Before this, the 10 divine sons of their clan had already gone to the starry sky to suppress Lin Tian. They didn't expect that Lin Tian, the reincarnation body, would come to their camp at this time. Then, in the next moment, these people looked at Lin Tian. When their gazes fell on Lin Tian's eyes, they couldn't help but be even more shocked. "You!" Facing Lin Tian's reincarnation eye, even the Path Fusion realm powerhouses felt a chill down their spines and souls for no reason. It was as if a sharp blade of death was pressed against their throats. Looking at these people, Lin Tian's expression didn't change at all. The reincarnation light sword condensed in his hand and slashed down. At the same time, his reincarnation eye trembled slightly. Great reincarnation cracks appeared one after another, suppressing the universe. The reincarnation light rumbled with boundless vastness. It was extremely terrifying. "Reincarnation force? You!" The expressions of the 20-path fusion realm powerhouses of the Rakshasa clan changed drastically. Everyone trembled violently for no reason. Lin Tian took a step forward. Heaven and earth pulsed with him. Tens of thousands of Daos appeared and followed him, attacking everyone indiscriminately. The 20-path fusion realm supreme elders of the Rakshasa clan were terrified. They all knew how terrifying the reincarnation light was. They didn't hold back at all. The 20 of them joined forces to fight Lin Tian with all their strength. All kinds of order divine abilities and killing lights appeared together. Lin Tian was expressionless. He waved the reincarnation light sword in his hand. It was completely condensed from the pure reincarnation force. As he waved it casually, tens of thousands of Daos trembled and all directions submitted. The boundless space trembled violently. Boom! 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 Surging saint energy interweaved here. The supreme reincarnation aura spread here. The entire great world was shaking. Lin Tian fought against 20-path fusion realm powerhouses with his peak soul reincarnation realm cultivation base. No emotion could be seen on his face. Only his reincarnation eye was extremely deep. It seemed as if heaven and earth were collapsing inside. It was as if tens of thousands of souls were roaring. It was extremely terrifying. Pft, pft, pft. On this day, blood kept splashing here. Facing Lin Tian, who was at the soul reincarnation realm and had opened his reincarnation eye, the 20 supreme elders of the Rakshasa clan were powerless even though their cultivation bases were much higher than Lin Tian's. They couldn't gain any advantage in the battle against Lin Tian. They couldn't even escape and were killed one after another. In the blink of an eye, only one of the 20 supreme elders of the Rakshasa clan was left. Don't kill me! This was a powerhouse at the peak of the Path Fusion realm. He was covered in blood and was suppressed by Lin Tian's reincarnation light. He begged for mercy and fear. Lin Tian didn't say anything else. He searched for the great world of the Rakshasa clan from the opponent's sea of consciousness, and directly drowned it with the boundless reincarnation light. The opponent's body collapsed and his soul was annihilated. The reincarnation eye closed silently and the reincarnation lightsaber disappeared along with it. He turned around and left, disappearing in the blink of an eye. An hour later, he appeared at the temporary camp the Ninth Hell clan had set up in the primordial universe, and he annihilated everyone in the camp before he searched for the location of the Ninth Hell clan's world and left slowly. An hour later, he arrived at the Nether clan's temporary camp in the primordial universe. Just like the temporary camps of the Nether clan, and the Rakshasa clan, he killed all of the Nether clan's experts in this camp. Then, he found the coordinates of the Nether Clan's major world from the Sea of Consciousness of the Nether Clan's Supreme Elder, destroyed the temporary camp, and left silently. After leaving the great world of the Underworld Clan's temporary camp, he walked in the primordial universe. He could hear screams as the celestial soldiers and celestial generals of the celestial court wantonly massacred in this universe. The living beings of many worlds died one after another. His eyes were sometimes dazed, sometimes violent with killing intent, and sometimes numb with the vicissitudes of life. He walked in the primordial universe like this. Soon, he appeared in an extremely large world where the sounds of battle shook the heavens. Ah! Screams echoed in this extremely large world as the celestial soldiers and celestial generals of the celestial court wantonly massacred thousands of living beings. "There's someone here! Kill him!" As he entered this extremely large world, powerful celestial soldiers and celestial generals discovered him and directly attacked him. These celestial soldiers and celestial generals were not weak. Their cultivation bases ranged from the Saint Venerable stage to the Void Sky stage. The Saint aura around their bodies was very intimidating. However, as soon as they got within 10 feet of Lin Tian, the luster of life in their eyes disappeared silently. They fell directly to the ground as the aura of reincarnation intertwined around Lin Tian's body stripped them of their life and soul energy. Lin Tian's pace did not change at all as he walked in this extremely large world like a lonely traveler. He passed through the blood-stained celestial mountains and soon arrived in front of a boundless desert. He appeared in the center of the desert. Chapter 23-21. A fist-sized 7-colored light source silently hovered in the air above the center of the desert. Strands of light flickered. As Lin Tian arrived, the fist-sized rainbow-colored light source seemed to have sensed him. As if it had its own consciousness, it began to tremble and intertwine with an even denser rainbow-colored light. In a flash, it appeared beside Lin Tian. This was the sword soul fragment of the Rainbow Divine Sword. Looking at it, Lin Tian's gaze did not change. He stood there quietly and absorbed the sword soul fragment into his body. As the sword soul fragment entered his body, dense spiritual energy entered his body along with the sword soul fragment. The sword soul fragment entered the rainbow godly sword, and the spiritual energy carried by the sword soul fragment flowed to every corner of his body. Buzz! Outside his body, there was naturally a resplendent 7-colored light that intertwined. As the Reincarnation Heart Sutra circulated on its own to refine the spiritual energy in his body, the 7-colored light became even stronger. At the same time, a 9-colored light overflowed from his body. This scene continued. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours passed. After 2 hours, the new sword soul fragment had completely merged with the Rainbow Divine Sword. The sword runes on the Divine Sword lit up even more. At the same time, the aura outside his body became denser. It had reached the peak of the soul reincarnation realm. He was only a sliver away from the Tao fusion stage. In the desert, the wind blew, stirring up strands of sand. His expression did not change. He turned and left. After taking 3 steps, he disappeared from this great world and walked to another place. He had comprehended the nameless path and controlled the power of reincarnation. His reincarnation body had truly awakened. His reincarnation eyes had also opened, and his cultivation had reached the peak of the soul reincarnation realm. His strength had reached an extremely high level. Even someone as strong as Wui could not compare to him. Standing at such a height, with reincarnation on his body and the Divine Sword's main body in his body, he could clearly sense the fragments of the Sword Soul that were still scattered in the world. There were only 3 fragments left, and he had already sensed their exact locations. Not long after that, he appeared in a barren great world. He came to an eternal snow abyss in this world and found another fragment of the Sword Soul. He absorbed it into his body and fused it with the Divine Sword. At the same time, he refined the tremendous spiritual energy that the new fragment of the Sword Soul brought into his body. His essence, spirit, and cultivation base increased bit by bit. In the blink of an eye, more than an hour had passed. The sword's soul fragments had completely merged with the divine sword. The vast spiritual energy that the sword's soul fragments had brought with them had also been completely refined by the Reincarnation Heart Sutra at this moment. Dong! The sky shook violently as a pitch-black lightning vortex appeared. Within it, black lightning surged. After fusing with two sword soul fragments, his cultivation improved again. He went from the peak of the soul reincarnation realm to the early stage of the Tao fusion realm. Rumble! Thunder rumbled and black lightning interweaved in the sky, shaking the world. Now that he had stepped into the Tao fusion realm, the Tao fusion heavenly punishment descended upon him. The barren world turned pitch black in an instant as a destructive aura enveloped the entire world. Black lightning interweaved in the lightning vortex like destructive lightning dragons. It was as if they wanted to destroy everything in the world. He stood where he was and looked at the sky quietly. Boom! The sound of thunder shook the 9 heavens. In an instant, the first round of the main lightning punishment struck down and drowned him. Where he stood, the snow abyss was immediately torn apart. All the snow melted, and the land within a radius of 100,000 feet was directly scorched black. There was not a single inch of undamaged ground. Strands of electric arcs intertwined in the air. He still stood in his original spot. He did not resist the first round of the main lightning punishment, allowing it to fall on his body. The lightning punishment shattered, but he was unscathed. The reincarnation body had reached the large success stage, and the natural defensive power of the flesh shell shattered the first round of the main lightning punishment. Compared to his current physical body, this round of the main lightning punishment was like tofu smashing into a hard rock. Black lightning wantonly raged in the sky. The destructive aura became more terrifying as time passed. After 5 breaths, the second round of the main lightning punishment appeared and pressed down mightily. Lin Tian stood where he was and still did not make any move to resist. He quietly watched the second round of the main lightning punishment strike down. At the same time, the immortal Emperor Pagoda emerged from his body and floated beside him. It was under the lightning punishment with him. Boom! The second round of the main lightning punishment fell. The immortal Emperor Pagoda was immediately torn apart, and the ground became even more dilapidated and scorched black. He stood where he was and was still unharmed. The reincarnation body had reached the large success stage. The capital of the strongest king body was truly displayed today. It was extremely tough and unparalleled. He quietly stood where he was and looked at the lightning vortex in the sky. Thunder roared and black lightning flashed. Boom! The thunder continued. In the lightning vortex in the sky, the black lightning wantonly became more powerful, and the destructive aura became stronger. After that, round after round of the main lightning punishment appeared one after another. Thunder palaces, vast rivers of lightning, endless blades of lightning, dense balls of lightning, ferocious lightning beasts. Under such violent lightning punishment, the barren macro world shook violently, and its territory was constantly collapsing. In the blink of an eye, a total of 15 rounds of the main lightning punishment had passed. The aura of the lightning punishment became more terrifying and surging. At this time, Lin Tian began to move. The reincarnation light appeared, and the reincarnation eye opened. With an overbearing and unparalleled power, he shattered the lightning punishment one after another. Finally, the 18th round of the main lightning punishment descended, and heaven and earth roared. Streaks of lightning intertwined. There were angels with broken wings, headless knights, immortals with broken arms, ferocious ghosts, ferocious beasts, and blind blood shadows. The densely packed streaks of lightning intertwined with each other. Each of them was condensed from black lightning, and the power they emitted was truly fierce to the extreme. It was as if they were real, and could destroy all things. At the same time, in the lightning vortex, a huge millstone appeared. It was like the gear of heaven and earth. It was incomparably huge. As the dense lightning shadows pressed down, the entire barren macro world shook even more violently. Boom! Raging tornadoes interweaved in this place. Tornadoes could destroy the heavens and the earth. Everywhere they passed, everything was destroyed. The black hair in front of Lin Tian's forehead fluttered in the wind. The reincarnation eye intertwined with mysterious heaven and earth Tao patterns. In the next moment, the endless reincarnation light intertwined, and a large reincarnation crack appeared, facing the descending heavenly punishment head-on. For a time, in this place, unparalleled brilliance drowned everything. The aura of destruction rolled like a vast sea. It was not until more than half an hour later that this place calmed down, and the aura of destruction gradually dissipated. All the lightning shadows disappeared, and the huge lightning millstone disappeared. The lightning vortex in the sky also dissipated. The darkness that shrouded this world was gradually replaced by light. This barren macro world was almost completely broken. The surface was scorched black, and there were many places where magma was constantly bubbling up. It was as if in the next moment, it would completely disintegrate and collapse. Outside Lin Tian's body, the reincarnation light dissipated, and the reincarnation eye closed, returning to its usual appearance. Under the violent 18th round of the main lightning punishment, he was still unscathed. 1. In the sky, a 7-colored auspicious cloud floated out, mixed with the purest spiritual energy in the world. It fell straight down, enveloping Lin Tian. The pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth seemed to have a mind of its own as it flowed into Lin Tian's body, nourishing his powerful physical body. The Reincarnation Heart Sutra circulated, automatically refining the 7-colored divine light. After a quarter of an hour, the 7-colored auspicious cloud disappeared. His cultivation level was truly above the Tao fusion realm, and his essence, qi, and spirit were frighteningly dense. Beside him, pieces of purple fragments floated in the air. Those were the fragments of the immortal Emperor Pagoda that had been shattered by the lightning punishment. He looked at them, waved his hand, and gathered them together, forming the Emperor Pagoda again. On the Emperor Pagoda, there were more lightning patterns and Tao marks. They intertwined with an incomparably domineering aura, as if they could easily suppress everything. This was his origin divine weapon. Now, it had become a Tao fusion-level treasure. Without any change in expression, he put away the immortal Emperor Pagoda and left this barren macro world that was already extremely broken. Time passed little by little. He seemed lost and lonely as he traveled through this universe. In a crack of a world, he found a sword soul fragment and successfully fused it into the main body of the divine sword. Then, another half a day passed. He appeared in another extreme macro world, where he found the last sword soul fragment. As the last sword soul fragment fused into the rainbow divine sword, all the divine patterns on the surface of the divine sword lit up. This divine sword was completed on this day. Ding-ling-ling! At the end of the divine sword's hilt was a purple bell. It seemed to have sensed that the rainbow divine sword was completed and made a sound at this moment. It was very crisp. Lin Tianwei trembled. Looking at this purple bell, his nose felt sour, and he seemed to be unable to hold back his tears. This was a very ordinary purple bell. It was a toy given to him by his grandfather, who had raised him when he was 3 years old. He had always carefully kept this purple bell. In his previous life, in order to take revenge and become stronger, his master, the human king, had used a supreme method to break through the cycle of reincarnation. He had brought him into the cycle of reincarnation and separated his physical body from his spirit. He had used his physical body as the material to forge the rainbow divine sword, and a part of his spirit had become the sword soul. At that time, this purple bell had been embedded in this divine sword. This sword had been forged by his master, the human king, in the cycle of reincarnation. It had become his protective divine weapon after reincarnation. This was because the sword had once been his physical body, and the sword soul was a part of his spirit. Moreover, his master, the human king, had specially forged this sword for him. Therefore, only he and the person who had inherited his bloodline could control this sword. No one else could. However, because the rainbow divine sword that had been forged back then was too powerful, his master was worried that if the complete divine sword had fallen into his hands after reincarnation, that powerful power would have made him dependent on it. Therefore, In the process of forging the divine sword and sending it out of the cycle of reincarnation, he had deliberately split the sword's soul, leaving only a part of it in the divine sword's body. The other parts were then scattered between heaven and earth for the reincarnated Lin Tian to slowly find. Only when he had completely found the sword's soul fragments, and gathered all of them, could the divine sword be completed, and he could control the divine sword as he wished. In addition to the part of his spirit that had turned into the sword's soul, in his previous life, another part of his spirit had been split into two. In the cycle of reincarnation, with the help of his master, the human king, they had been branded with reincarnation substances. Then they had gone to reincarnation and were born from heaven and earth, becoming two individuals. One was him on the Milky Way imperial star, and the other was him in the 10 directions celestial domain. The Milky Way imperial star, the 10 directions celestial domain, 2 regions, 2 individuals with the same name and appearance. They were both him. 2 regions, 2 of him, died at almost the same time. The 2 souls with the same origin were pulled together and fused together, causing a sudden change and a new life. After experiencing the alternation between life and death, coupled with the immortal reincarnation substance that had been branded on the soul body in the cycle of reincarnation in his previous life, it stimulated a change in the origin and turned into a reincarnated body. After recovering the memories of his previous life, he remembered everything that had happened. His reincarnated body was forged with the help of his master, the human king, with the help of his supreme methods. Thank you, Master. Originally, it was impossible for him to recover his memories after reincarnation. However, before reincarnation, a portion of his original memories had been extracted and sealed away. It had been integrated into his body, so he could recall everything that had happened in the past. Looking at the purple bell on the divine sword, the light of reincarnation intertwined in his hand, and he took the purple bell off the divine sword. Ding-ling-ling! The purple bell trembled, once again producing a crisp ringing sound. Grandfather! Chapter 23-22. When he was adopted by the old tribe leader, the old tribe leader did not hide anything and told him that he was not his biological grandfather. Ever since he could remember, he knew that he was picked up and was not the biological grandson of the old patriarch. However, this had never affected the old patriarch's love for him. The old patriarch, who was over 70 years old, completely treated him as his own son. If there was good food or good drink, he would think of him first. If there was good clothes, etc., he would give him at the first opportunity. From the moment he could remember, he knew that he was adopted and was not a member of a small tribe. However, this did not hinder the people in the tribe from treating him as a compatriot. The adults in the tribe were very good to him. From the moment he could remember, he knew that he was adopted. The children of the same age as him in the small tribe gradually learned about this, but this did not hinder them from treating him as a companion. They played and played with him and grew up happily together. The old tribe leader of the small tribe, the adults of the small tribe, and the children of the small tribe did not have a trace of blood relationship with him. However, they were his most important family members. They were his everything. However, all of this was destroyed. He held the purple bell and looked at it. His completed reincarnation body could not stop trembling. After a few breaths of time, he absorbed the purple bell into his body and stored it inside. The 7-colored divine sword was covered with divine patterns. These divine patterns were left behind by his teacher, the human king. They contained extremely shocking divine power. He held the divine sword, and his fingers trembled slightly. The sword's spirit within flew out, turning into a dazzling mass of 7-colored radiance. It gradually turned into a human figure, and at this moment, it exuded boundless soul energy and an extremely exuberant aura of life. In the next moment, the human-shaped sword's spirit rushed into his body and quickly appeared in his spiritual sea. It entered his spiritual sea and merged with his spiritual sea. Suddenly, his essence, chi, and spirit soared. Majestic spiritual energy rushed into his flesh and blood, intertwining with dazzling light. His cultivation base continued to grow. In the blink of an eye, dozens of breaths passed. Boom! A surge of majestic energy rushed out from his body, creating gusts of hurricanes. The sword spirit was a part of his spiritual sea. It had existed in the divine sword for countless years, constantly absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to grow. Now that it had returned and merged with him, his cultivation increased again. From the early stage of the Tao fusion realm, he stepped into the middle stage of the Tao fusion realm. Dazzling divine light intertwined in his body for a long time. His aura was extremely powerful. He looked at the seven-colored divine sword in his hand. It was densely packed with divine patterns that seemed to contain the truth of heaven and earth. In the next instant, he let go of the rainbow divine sword and let it float in front of him. Then, he summoned the immortal Emperor Pagoda. The sect Emperor's Pagoda was forged from grand mist heavenly crystals. It could grow without limit. It was his origin divine weapon in this life. Strands of divine radiance surrounded the immortal Emperor Pagoda. Thunder patterns and Tao seals covered the entire pagoda, interweaving with each other in a vast, majestic, and domineering manner. Looking at the sect Emperor's pagoda, he waved his hand, causing the light of reincarnation and the power of souls to wrap around the immortal Emperor Pagoda. It transformed into a dazzling sphere of light that merged with the rainbow's sword. Boom! As the divine Emperor's pagoda merged with the seven-colored divine sword, the seven-colored divine sword exploded with even more shocking divine light. The divine patterns on it shone brightly. The divine sword vibrated and hummed. Gradually, the seven-colored divine sword began to change into a nine-colored divine sword. After dozens of breaths, the seven-colored divine sword completely disappeared. It was completely replaced by the nine-colored divine sword. The divine sword was forged using his body from his previous life. His master, the Ramwang, had forged it for him. At this moment, he had fused the immortal Emperor Pagoda that he had forged himself in this life into the divine sword, merging the divine weapons of the two sects into one. No matter when, this divine sword that his master, the human king, had forged for him would be his only protective divine weapon. In this life, it had merged with the immortal Emperor's pagoda and his reincarnation power. This protective divine weapon had become even stronger. The reincarnation sword. Looking at the divine sword surrounded by nine-colored divine sword, he paused for a moment, and then absorbed it into his body. The wind blew, lifting the black hair on his forehead. He raised his head and looked at the universe in the distance. His gaze was sometimes violent, sometimes calm, and sometimes crazy. After dozens of breaths, he left this place and stepped into a barren mountain. He sat cross-legged under a huge tree and closed his eyes. To origin returning Taoist accumulations, comprehending reincarnation, nourishing his origin memories with boundless soul energy. His reincarnation body had reached phenomenal success, the divine sword had reached perfection, and part of his divine soul had returned. During this period, his cultivation had improved too quickly. He needed to consolidate it. Then, he had to do other things. Nine-colored divine light intertwined on the surface of his body, dyeing the nearby ancient trees in the void with a layer of 9 colors. 10 directions heavenly domain, immortal court. Where did Daddy go? When will he come back? Ruoxian held her mother's hand, her face full of worry. Beside her, Jiyu, Bai Qiu, and the others were also very worried. Their faces were gloomy as they looked at Wu Yi. Lin Tian wasn't here, so Wu Yi was their backbone. It's okay. Wu Yi gently stroked Ruoxian's hair. Ruoxian clenched her hands, anger and hatred intertwined in her beautiful big eyes. I want to fight. After learning what the Celestial Court did to her father, she couldn't calm down for a moment. I'll go too. Bai Qiu also clenched her hands. Ji Yu, Shui Yi, Su Shu, Lin Shi, and the Violet Fairy all spoke one after another. At this time, they all looked at Wu Yi. Wu Yi nodded. Together. On this day, the group stepped out of the 10 directions heavenly domain into the starry sky and began their campaign against the Celestial Court in the primordial universe. Before this, Little Taichu, Yitong, the Little Fox, Snow Wolf, Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, Ling Yun, Yang Qi, Wishing Crocodile, and the White Tiger had already charged out of the 10 directions heavenly domain with boundless fury, killing the celestial court experts in the primordial universe. Feng Xingtianzuan, Celestial Venerate Chaos, and Celestial Venerate Zhang Longzang had stepped out of the immortal court earlier and joined forces with the immortal spirit overlord and Nameless. The 11 of them had all reached the Grand Void Realm, their battle prowess overwhelming the heavenly soldiers and generals. At the same time, the immortal generals of the immortal court who had learned of Lin Tian's past were even more furious. All of this quickly spread throughout the immortal court. All the immortal soldiers and generals in the immortal court learned of their leader's past, and their killing intent soared to the heavens. Only a portion of the immortal soldiers and generals remained to guard the starry sky, while the rest charged out of the starry sky to fight. Kill! The overall battle prowess of these immortal soldiers and generals was far inferior to that of the celestial court's celestial soldiers and generals. However, their fearless battle aura and surging killing intent brought about by their towering rage were extremely frightening and could almost disintegrate everything. The vast primordial universe instantly fell into the most intense battle. Damn it! How dare you resist? How dare an ant cry to the heavens? The celestial soldiers and generals of the celestial court were enraged in various locations in the universe. Since ancient times, 8 great universes had collapsed in the hands of the celestial court. In the process, they had never encountered such fierce resistance as the primordial universe. Bastards! Die, all of you! Kill! The celestial soldiers and generals of the celestial court rushed to every corner of the primordial universe with boundless rage and killing everything in their path. All the immortal soldiers and generals, regardless of their strength, were now enraged by their leader. Their eyes were filled with madness. The intense battle and the aura of killing spread throughout the primordial universe. The aura of blood permeated every corner of the primordial universe. Boom! In the celestial realm, a towering saint radiance erupted. In a barren desert, a white-haired corpse rushed out. The old hooligan appeared with it and merged with the corpse in the blink of an eye. In an instant, a terrifying aura spread out. His cultivation base rose steadily and reached the reincarnation soul realm in the blink of an eye. The human king owes you a favor, the old hooligan muttered. He was once a supreme expert of the universe. Back then, he was severely injured and was about to die. He was saved by the human king. At that time, his physical body was sealed in the tomb of the celestial realm. The human king had carved a saint array to continuously absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to maintain it and slowly grow. His divine soul left his original physical body and formed a new one to cultivate again. On this day, he merged with this original physical body. His cultivation base broke through to an extremely high level in the blink of an eye and stepped into the reincarnation soul realm. That little guy has finally returned. The old hooligan already knew about Lin Tian's return. At this moment, the old hooligan, who had always been a playful old hooligan, had a deep and gloomy look in his eyes. Using everything he had to obtain the strongest physique and control the cycle of reincarnation that all living things are jealous of. However, what he carried wasn't the strongest from the start. What he carried was endless hatred and pain. In the next moment, dazzling divine radiance rushed out of his eyes. Old man, let me have a taste of blood too. The entire celestial realm was shaken. The cultivation base of the reincarnation realm shocked everyone. The old hooligan began to make his move. At the same time, the martial ancestor, the old Taoist, and the primitive emperor also appeared in this universe one after another. All of them had greatly improved in the great calamity of the Xianhuan universe. Their combat strength was much stronger than before. At this moment, they began to fight against the experts of the celestial court. In this universe, the battle became even more intense. Time passed by bit. In the blink of an eye, a full 3 months had passed. In a desolate great world in the Hongming universe, Lin Tian sat cross-legged under an ancient tree. On this day, he opened his eyes. The 9-colored divine radiance outside his body was hidden inside his body. In the past 3 months, He had consolidated his strength under the ancient tree. Now, his cultivation base and foundation were completely stabilized. He was at the mid-stage of the Tao fusion realm. His essence, qi, and spirit were even more vigorous. He stood up and looked outside the Hongmeng universe. In the next moment, he silently disappeared and stepped out of this universe. In the great world, 8 of the 9 universes had been destroyed. He walked in the empty world like a lonely traveler. Half a month later, he arrived in front of an incomparably magnificent great world. That grandeur was indescribable with words. "Who is it?" a cold voice sounded. Outside the great world, a dozen figures stepped out. The weakest of them was at the void transformation realm. Their bodies were surrounded by the unique bloodline fluctuations of the Rakshasa clan. Lin Tian stepped forward. The meridians of heaven and earth trembled with his footsteps. The dozen Rakshasa experts gradually became sluggish. Then, one by one, they disintegrated into dust and dissipated. Buzz! Outside the magnificent great world, as he really got close, endless sacred runes intertwined. They contained boundless will. The murderous aura erupted as if it could crush everything. Chapter 23-23. The surging murderous aura was extremely terrifying, as if a world-destroying formation had been set up in this place. An ordinary Tao fusion powerhouse would definitely be crushed by such a murderous aura. Facing such a terrifying murderous aura and the dense saint runes, Lin Tian's footsteps did not change at all. The world pulsed with his footsteps. The murderous aura that filled the sky slid past him without hurting him at all. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the magnificent great world. This was the world where the Rakshasa race had established their race. The reincarnation light appeared outside his body, vast and boundless. He raised his hand, and the world barrier immediately broke open. He stepped inside. In just an instant, he stepped into the Rakshasa world. As far as the eye could see, this was an extremely grand macro world. A macro world like the celestial realm of nothingness could not be compared to this macro world at all. Inside, divine mountains and immortal rivers were everywhere, and the spiritual power in the air was extremely dense. Stepping into this Rakshasa great world, his gaze fell on the center of this great world, and he headed in that direction. This world belonged to the Rakshasa race, and the center of this world was where the Rakshasa royal race had established their race. A human? Not long after he entered this Rakshasa world, a Rakshasa powerhouse in this world discovered him. The Rakshasa race, like the 9 Nether race, the Underworld race, and the Yellow Spring race, had all killed their way into the primordial universe to carry out the final great destruction. Naturally, not all of their members had entered the primordial universe. Many of them had stayed behind in this race world. At this moment, a group of Rakshasa sovereigns discovered Lin Tian, and they were immediately shocked. This was the origin world of the Rakshasa race, located outside the 9 great universes. There were only the Rakshasa race and some other demonic beasts inside. But now, they actually saw a human in their race world. What's going on? There should be many deacons guarding outside our race's world, and there should be a great formation isolating us. How did he enter? These Rakshasa cultivators were all shocked, and they could not understand this at all. Lin Tian saw these Rakshasa cultivators, but he did not care at all. He headed straight for the center of the world. Many Rakshasa cultivators were enraged. A human intruded into their world and even ignored them. How dare you! Take him down! All the Lilsha cultivators moved at once. All of them displayed their overbearing saintly might and shrouded Lin Tian. In the blink of an eye, a group of Lilsha cultivators pressed down on Lin Tian, and their saintly might became even thicker. Then, it was also at this time that the holy light that everyone had conjured was annihilated. One by one, they disintegrated one after another as their bodies and souls were destroyed. Lin Tian's footsteps did not change in the slightest. He simply took a few steps, but his speed gradually increased. It was as though he was passing through space. A single step brought him boundless distance. Before long, he arrived at the center of this large world. As far as the eye could see, a large number of sacred palaces were erected in front of him. Groups of treasure islands were suspended in the air, and it was difficult to count how many there were. They seemed to have existed since ancient times, and strands of sacred light were intertwined with each other. The spiritual energy and light of the way were intertwined in the air, and they were shockingly thick. This was the Luoxia capital city. When Lin Tian arrived, the first thing he did was to look at the center of the Luoxia capital city, and he walked straight there. The Luoxia capital city was incomparably grand. Naturally, there were Luoxia cultivators guarding outside, and they naturally saw Lin Tian. Human? How could there be a human in our world? Just like the Rakshasa powerhouses from before, the group of Rakshasa powerhouses guarding outside the Rakshasa royal city were all moved at this moment. Then, in the next moment, these people did not hesitate at all and directly attacked. Unparalleled saintly might pressed toward Lin Tian at the same time. Don't kill him for now. Take him down and interrogate him. Let's see what's going on. How could a human appear in our territory like this? Among these people, the weakest was at the ascension level. They were much stronger than those Luoxia cultivators before, and the saintly might that they conjured was very powerful. Lin Tian stepped forward and looked straight at the sacred palace at the center of the Luoxia capital city. Hatred, violence, and murderous light flashed in his eyes one after another. Outside his body, the reincarnation light wandered freely. Poof! 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 Bloody mist exploded one by one. Any Luoxia cultivator who came within 3 feet of him was instantly destroyed in body and soul. The smell of blood floated in the air and spread in all directions. Immediately, the Luoxia cultivators in the Luoxia capital city nearby all sensed something and looked over. Then, the Luoxia cultivators saw Lin Tian and were all shocked. Human? As the disbelieving voices were heard, all the Luoxia cultivators nearby who saw Lin Tian moved at the same time. All of them rushed toward Lin Tian and suppressed him at the same time. A human actually appeared in the Luoxia origin world and barged into the Luoxia capital city. This made the Luoxia cultivators feel that it was unbelievable. At the same time, their eyes were filled with cruelty and murderous light. Lin Tian looked at the sacred palace at the center of the Luoxia capital city. Ruthlessness, violence, and hatred flashed in his eyes as he walked toward it step by step, ignoring everything around him. Poof! 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 Reincarnation aura intertwined around his body. Blood mist exploded everywhere he passed. Including some Rakshasa powerhouses of the void transformation realm, no one could get within 3 feet of him. No one could withstand his reincarnation aura. Gradually, more and more Luoxia cultivators noticed Lin Tian and rushed toward Lin Tian. Then, more than 30 Path Fusion Realm cultivators appeared. They were the Grand Supreme Elders of this clan. In terms of cultivation, they were second only to the Luoxia King. Reincarnation body! These people had extremely high statuses in the Luoxia clan. Naturally, they knew about Lin Tian, the reincarnation body. Now that they saw Lin Tian, the reincarnation body, appear in the Luoxia capital city, everyone was shocked. At the same time, they were even more shocked when they saw the reincarnation light intertwining around Lin Tian's body. You! The dozens of Grand Supreme Elders of this clan could not help but tremble slightly. Reincarnation was the supreme force in this world that was known to him. Lin Tian took a step forward and ignored these people. His gaze was always on the Luoxia clan's sacred palace in the center. Outside his body, the reincarnation light condensed into a reincarnation light sword and slashed toward the sacred palace in the center. The sword was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of the sacred palace and landed on it, shattering it into pieces. Human! Damn it! How dare you! In Monarch City, a group of Luoxia cultivators, including the Grand Supreme Elders, were shocked and angry. They were shocked by Lin Tian's strength and angry that Lin Tian dared to destroy their Luoxia sacred palace. That was the symbol of the Luoxia clan. To them, it was of great significance. At this time, there was a rumble. From the shattered Luosha's sacred palace, a figure rushed out and arrived in the sky. It was a middle-aged man in a blood-red robe. His spirit was extremely terrifying, and his cultivation was at the mid-stage reincarnation realm. Grand Supreme Elder! King! In Monarch City, a group of Luosha cultivators, including the Grand Supreme Elders, bowed to the middle-aged man. This was the king of their clan, the Luosha King. At the same time, the reincarnation aura became violent, shaking the heavens. Old bastard! Lin Tian's gaze landed on the Luosha King. At this moment, he went berserk. His eyes were filled with hatred and murderous intent. The reincarnation light instantly became extremely bright. Even in death, he would not forget that a dozen people had destroyed his home and killed all his important people. The Luosha King was one of those people. Rumble! Strands of terrifying gales swept out with him as the center, and strands of terrifying aura of samsara swept out and shattered expanses of space in the surroundings. When such an aura was released, the hurricane shook, causing the Grand Supreme Elders and a group of people nearby to be blown away. All of them could not help but be shocked by such an aura. The ant from back then is you! After the Luosha King appeared, his gaze naturally landed on Lin Tian. Seeing the reincarnation light outside Lin Tian's body, his eyes narrowed. Then, at this moment, when Lin Tian's aura exploded, he sensed the traces of the former origin soul energy that Lin Tian exuded. This caused him to immediately recognize Lin Tian. The one who disappeared for so long and dared to touch the reincarnation aura is actually you, the Ho. Boom! Violent saintly aura swept out. The reincarnation light was vast and mighty, shaking the surroundings. It immediately interrupted the Luosha King's words. Lin Tian moved. His eyes were filled with hatred and murderous intent. He instantly appeared in front of the Luosha King and directly punched him. This punch landed firmly on the Luosha King's cheek. Immediately, a large amount of blood splattered into the void. With a bang, the Luosha King was sent flying, shattering pieces of space. King! Grand Supreme Elder! In Monarch City, the Luosha cultivators' expressions changed drastically. The king of their clan was actually sent flying by Lin Tian's punch. Boom! The reincarnation light filled the sky. After sending the Luosha King flying with one punch, Lin Tian didn't stop at all. With bloodshot eyes, he turned into a human-shaped lightning and chased after the Luosha King, who was sent flying in one step. His fist that carried the reincarnation light crazily landed on the Luosha King. Bang! 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 Groans could be heard one after another. Blood splattered everywhere. Lin Tian was on the verge of going crazy. His black hair danced wildly, and his eyes were filled with hatred. He threw punch after punch at the Luosha King, causing the void in all directions to collapse. "Ant!" A chilling voice could be heard. Endless dark saintly light lingered around. The aura was terrifying, and it forcefully pushed Lin Tian away. The Luosha King's body cracked, but it instantly recovered. He looked at Lin Tian with a sinister gaze. He was the dignified Luosha King, a mid-stage reincarnation realm cultivator. Now, he was actually injured by an extremely weak person from back then. Chapter 23-24. Luosha King naturally remembered what happened in the past and knew about Lin Tian. Originally, after Lin Tian reincarnated, his origin aura had changed. He no longer had the same aura as before. However, Lin Tian's soul had recovered after he completed his reincarnation body and merged with a part of his soul. It was no different from his previous life. Therefore, the Rakshasa King recognized Lin Tian. "You tainted the reincarnation with petty hatred. You're not bad now. You've mastered the power of reincarnation. You're very powerful, very powerful." Looking at Lin Tian, the Rakshasa King's eyes were cold. "Unfortunately, you're too impatient. You're only at the mid-stage of the Tao fusion realm. How dare you barge in here and look for me? Where do you think this is? What cultivation do you think I'm at? As soon as he finished speaking, the dark holy light outside his body became denser. His aura became even more terrifying. As the Rakshasa king, he had existed since ancient times. His combat power was unparalleled. Lin Tian's black hair danced in the wind. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness, viciousness, and murderous intent. Outside his body, the reincarnation light surged. He naturally knew how powerful the Rakshasa king was. He had the bloodline of the Rakshasa king, which was far superior to other experts of the same level. His cultivation was at the mid-stage of the reincarnation realm, which was one realm higher than him. Furthermore, he was in the origin world where the clan was established. His combat power was much stronger than in other places. Ordinary early-stage true origin experts might not be able to escape unscathed if they came here. However, he still managed to kill his way here. There were some things that he couldn't endure just because he wanted to. He couldn't be impulsive just because he wanted to. Boom! The reincarnation light surged violently. He stared at the Rakshasa king like a wild beast. In the next moment he moved. The vast reincarnation light that filled the sky rushed towards the Rakshasa king. The monstrous reincarnation light turned into a wave of reincarnation. It pressed down mightily, suppressing everything around it. The Rakshasa king snorted. He knew how terrifying the reincarnation light was. However, he didn't retreat because his cultivation was much stronger than Lin Tian's. He was the Rakshasa king, the ancestor of the Rakshasa race. His bloodline was far superior to that of ordinary Rakshasa. Although he was only at the mid-stage of the reincarnation realm, he was invincible below the origin. Most importantly, this was the origin world of the Rakshasa race. So, even though the light of samsara was extremely terrifying and even though Lin Tian had grasped the energy of samsara, it was impossible for him to fear Lin Tian here. This large world was his domain. 1. Outside his body, the dark saint light charged towards Lin Tian, colliding with the reincarnation light that Lin Tian had unleashed. When the two collided, the light of samsara was clearly much stronger in terms of quality. However, the dark sacred light was clearly much thicker and possessed extremely dense killing intent. At this moment, it forcefully blocked Lin Tian's light of samsara, causing strands of destructive lightning to erupt from the collision. He blocked the reincarnation light. As expected of the king, a grand elder of this lineage said. The weakest of the grand elders in this faction was at the early stage of the Tao fusion realm. Naturally, they knew how terrifying the reincarnation light was. Even if Lin Tian was at the middle stage of the Tao fusion realm, it was still extremely terrifying. An ordinary middle stage reincarnation realm expert wouldn't be able to block it. However, their king had blocked it. Although this was within their expectations, and they knew how powerful their king was, when they saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel proud and excited. After all, reincarnation was the foundation of heaven and earth. It was the supreme power of heaven and earth. Being able to block the power of reincarnation was enough to make them proud. How is it? Even if you control the reincarnation light, how much power can you unleash with your cultivation? Do you think you're invincible after controlling the reincarnation light? What a joke! Looking at Lin Tian, the Rakshasa king said coldly, "A bug will always be a bug. You can't do anything." The reincarnation light collided with the dark reincarnation light. The reincarnation light closed in on Lin Tian. The majestic saint power shook all directions. However, at this moment, the Rakshasa king stopped. The reincarnation light Lin Tian unleashed suddenly began to surge. Boom! The reincarnation power surged and the reincarnation light surged. Lin Tian's black hair danced in the wind like a demon. Mysterious runes appeared in his eyes. The Rakshasa king was shocked. Rinnegan, you've already turned these. Boom! The reincarnation light became even more violent and interrupted his words. The Rinnegan opened, and Lin Tian's eyes were filled with rage. Between heaven and earth, all things became extremely clear. The light of reincarnation became stronger, and it underwent a qualitative change. As his eyes moved, it was like a destructive flood, and it completely destroyed the dark saint light that Luo Sha King used. At the same time, he moved. It was as if he teleported. With just one step, he appeared in front of the Rakshasa King again. You! Bang! Lin Tian swung his fist. The power of his fist shook heaven and earth. Carrying the reincarnation light, it landed steadily on the Rakshasa King's cheek. Blood splattered. The Rakshasa King, who was in the reincarnation realm, was immediately sent flying. King! In the Rakshasa royal city, the Rakshasa elites had already retreated far away. Seeing this scene, they all changed their expressions. A moment ago, they were still proud and excited that their king had blocked the reincarnation power. However, the next moment, the dark holy light unleashed by their king was destroyed by Lin Tian. Then, Lin Tianyi sent him flying with a punch. At the same time, the Rakshasa King's mouth was stained with blood. He stabilized himself in the distance. His eyes became extremely cold. Good. Very good. You've mastered the Rinnegan. You've exceeded my expectations. The Rakshasa King naturally knew how terrifying the Rinnegan was. At this moment, he looked at Lin Tian and Lin Tian's Rinnegan. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. The coldness in his eyes intensified. Let me see to what extent you've mastered this pair of eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a boom. The saintly aura outside his body became denser. It was dozens of times stronger than before. Then he moved. Although his cultivation was much higher than Lin Tian's, he was still wary of Lin Tian's Rinnegan. Lin Tian's eyes were ruthless. The Rinnegan could see through everything. He took a step forward, as if he was stepping on the nodes of heaven and earth. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the Rakshasa King again. It was still a simple and direct punch. The indestructible punch carried the reincarnation light. It collided head-on with the holy light unleashed by the Rakshasa King. Bam! Bam! A destructive hurricane swept over, annihilating the space. The two retreated. After retreating dozens of steps, the Rakshasa King steadied himself. He appeared in front of Lin Tian in a flash. With a cold and merciless look in his eyes, his sword finger landed on Lin Tian's chest. With a poof, it pierced through Lin Tian's chest. The higher your cultivation, the greater the gap between the realms. Looking at Lin Tian, he said cruelly, even though you've mastered the reincarnation light and comprehended the Rinnegan, your cultivation realm still limits you from using this power to Pachi. A slight sound interrupted his words. Lin Tian's chest and mouth were bleeding. However, he ignored his injuries. He grabbed the collar of the Rakshasa King's blood-red robe and pulled him in front of him. His eyes were extremely close to the Rakshasa King's eyes. In his eyes, the mysterious patterns of Taoism shone, causing the Rakshasa King to tremble violently. After the trembling began, it gradually became more and more intense. The Rakshasa King's face began to turn pale. In his consciousness, his divine soul suddenly appeared in a crimson purgatory. Thousands of souls roared inside. They were incomparably ferocious. They pounced on his divine soul like hungry and ferocious beasts, crazily tearing at his divine soul. Get lost! The Rakshasa King roared in pain. Outside his body, the dark holy light surged again. It shattered all the space around him. He broke free from Lin Tian's grip and retreated hundreds of feet before he could stabilize himself. His face was much paler at this moment. Illusion? No! No! It's not a simple illusion! Looking at Lin Tian's eyes, the Rakshasa King's eyes were filled with shock and anger. At the same time, there was a lingering fear in his heart. As his eyes met with Lin Tian's, his divine soul was pulled into a purgatory. Thousands of souls tore at it. After he broke free, he was still in the Rakshasa royal city. It was as if that scene was just an illusion. However, the intense pain from his divine soul and the cracks on his divine soul clearly told him that it was definitely not a simple illusion. In that short process, his divine soul had suffered considerable damage. If he had stayed in that scene for more than 10 breaths, his divine soul would definitely have been torn to pieces by the thousands of souls inside. After that, in reality, he would probably have died. King? What's wrong? What happened just now? In the Rakshasa royal city, a group of Rakshasa powerhouses was confused. They only saw the Rakshasa king penetrating Lin Tian, and Lin Tianji grabbing the Rakshasa king's blood-red robe collar. They did not see or sense anything else. However, in the next moment, their king shuddered violently. He retreated with a roar, and his face turned pale. There was blood at the corner of Lin Tian's mouth. Looking at the Rakshasa king who had broken free, his reincarnation eyes trembled slightly. The endless doubt patterns in his eyes intertwined and produced radiance again, causing dozens of reincarnation cracks to appear behind the Rakshasa king. For a moment, whimpering sounds could be heard from within, and a destructive sweeping force swept out from within, sweeping up the Rakshasa king within. Then, the dozens of great samsara cracks closed together, and the destructive light of samsara surged. Damn it! The Rakshasa king's furious roar rang out from within. Dim, holy light spurted out, and after 3 breaths, he forcefully tore open a large crack in the cycle of reincarnation. He stepped out covered in blood. Clearly, he had suffered significant injuries within. It was also at this moment that Lin Tian stepped forward and appeared in front of the blood-soaked Rakshasa king in a flash. Boom! You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.